Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto and Hinata were trained by Hagoromo. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The ninja world's worst enemy was the nine-tailed fox. Without bias or control, it obliterated everything in its path. It would appear like an emissary from hell wherever human depravity and cruelty gathered. Its evil had been heard of and dreaded by the whole ninja world. In front of Hinata, it was standing. To her surprise, the fox had a smile on its face as it gazed down at her. At last, they're both together. Hinata concluded that the fox would have already done harm to her if it had intended to. There was another thing happening. What do you mean? Why are you inside Naruto's mind? The fox laughed. I think you have the answer to that already. Hinata's mind was flooded with memories of Naruto. He was referred to as fox, demon, or monster by a number of people, but the most significant one was a recollection of her former sensei Mizuki informing Naruto that he had the nine-tailed fox locked in him. Hinata finally understood everything. Why was that awful orphanage woman accusing him of being responsible for her family's deaths? Why people stared at Naruto as if his presence made their blood boil? A fury that Hinata had never experienced before began to rise inside her as she shook her head back and forth. That's the reason he has suffered so much, because he was forced to be a hero. All the beatings and cold stares because he held you inside him. This isn't fair, he never had any choice. The fox became warm-eyed. I know, but that's why you are here, is it not? For a moment, Hinata suppressed her rage to inquire about something that was bothering her. How can you be so kind when you were supposed to be a demon? The fox let out a deep sigh. Where is it written that I called myself a demon, exactly? Hinata had the impression that she was about to make a significant discovery. But you show up wherever human evil is. We have records of it happening. You would show up and level everything. The fox encouraged her to continue because he wanted her to solve the problem. Everything? Then where did the stories come from, I wonder? When Hinata finally realized the reality, she gasped. You left most of the people alive and the stories came from them. You only showed up to destroy whatever evil had shown itself. You were trying to stop it. The fox grinned. Exactly. This world was left to me and my family to protect, and I could not allow those evils to keep threatening it. Hinata's mind was filled with recollections once more. One of these was when Hiroko sat Naruto down and told him a tale about the Sage of Six Paths and the Ten-tailed beast. How he created the 9 Biju from the chakra of the Ten-tailed beast and became the first Biju host. And how he showed them all the same love and care that he showed his own boys by blood. She whispered with disbelief, the sage, he was your father, before continuing. His face took on a sorrowful expression. Yes, he made me, my brothers and my sisters out of the chakra of the original beast and charged us with acting as the guardians of this world. Unfortunately, the world didn't see us that way. Hinata saw a much younger and smaller Kyuubi being pursued by a horde of ninja while the landscape surrounding them turned into a flaming battlefield. As Hinata watched the younger Kyuubi run with tears in his eyes, the fox spoke. You humans began to see us as power sources instead of sentient beings. From me down to my brother, Shukaku, humans began to hunt us down and seal us away inside of other humans in an attempt to claim our power as their own. Instead of being your protectors, we became your prey. With courage, Hinata approached the fox and touched its paw. Being sent from prison to prison by the people you were supposed to protect. I'm so sorry. Astonished by Hinata's courage, the fox gazed down at her. All these centuries of being spoken to like a mindless beast by the legends of the ninja world. And now 2 ninja who are seen as disappointments are the one who see past that. Once more, their surroundings shifted. They found themselves in an underground sewer of some sort. A huge metal cage with dozens of pipes running from it on the ceiling stood in front of the 2. There wasn't much light in the room, and the stone walls appeared to be fractured and wet. When Hinata glanced toward the cage, she noticed the 9-tailed fox on the other side of it glaring down at the small Naruto seated in front of it. Hinata heard the fox speak once more. Watch, little one. Naruto, who was only 9 years old at the time, was grinning in front of the cage as he watched the enormous fox growl at him from behind it. My mama told me about you. She said you were really lonely, so I wanted to talk to you. With a roar, the fox drove its claws through the cage, bringing them within an inch of Naruto's face. Naruto, meanwhile, didn't even bat an eye. Curse this damned seal that keeps me here. How I wish to feast on your bones. With a single sentence, Naruto disarmed the fox, ignoring the claws in his face. It hurts when you're forced to be all alone, doesn't it? Instead of growling, the fox in the recollection simply gazed at Naruto. What? Naruto smiled sadly. I'm the same. I was all alone back home before Mama and my big sisters came to get me. They were so nice to me. They played with me, fed me, and Kagome even reads these cool stories to me almost every night. I'm not alone anymore, why should you be? In the recollection, the Kyuubi pulled back his claws and gave the young Naruto a fresh look. You expect us to be friends, boy? Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. I know it'll take a little while, but I'll be your friend. From the other side of the cage, Kyuubi leaned down to meet Naruto's gaze. Do you not know who I am? Naruto laughed and shook his head. How can I when you haven't told me your name yet? Little Naruto cocked his head as if he had heard someone and got up to leave, while the Kyuubi watched in disbelief. Naruto paused to smile as he gazed at the Kyuubi. He frowned as he glanced around the sewer scene and said, Sorry, my mama is calling me. She says I can only stay in here for little bits at a time at first. But I'll be back tomorrow to talk some more. And I'll ask Mama if I can give you a nicer place to live. The image returned to a verdant meadow as Naruto disappeared, but this time a huge, elaborate castle loomed over the horizon. From top to bottom, the gray stone walls are adorned with carved seals and symbols. It had a huge wooden gate in front of it that was taller than the Kyuubi, and two big, flaming stone foxes were standing there. Hinata was captivated to the castle even though she thought it should have been imposing and menacing. It was like a call to home. To halt her, the Kyuubi gently placed a claw in front of her. The wood gate had appeared, and she had started toward it without even realizing it. Wait, little one. You need to know what you are doing before you make your decision. Hinata paused and gave the fox her whole attention as she peered up at him. The fox's gaze was fixed on the palace. He chose to elaborate after noticing her stunned expression. What you see here is the entirety of Naruto's mind. This castle is his conscious and subconscious all given form. If you enter, then your path will be set. You will be unable to leave until you find the center of Naruto's mind and take your place beside him. Then you two will truly be one. He used his claw to gently lift her chin so she could look him in the eyes. Naruto is waiting for you there. Waiting at the center of the castle. All you need to do is find him and sit by him and the bond is set. Your minds will be bound as fully and completely as two rivers forming into one. All his thoughts, feelings, and pain will be yours and yours his. Do you still wish this after learning what he is and the burden he bears? You could just walk away now. You have awakened the Moon Sage chakra, after all. You don't need to do this. Hinata's eyes blazed with passion, and she spoke with a confidence she didn't know she had. Hinata turned to face the fox and said, I wish it more now than ever. Naruto went for years being beaten and humiliated by the village without even knowing why. All those years of pain. All those years of loneliness and tears, and he still wants to be the Hokage. The leaf has hurt and betrayed him and he still wants nothing more than to be our greatest protector. He stands when anyone else would fall, fights when anyone else would run, and he smiles when he has every reason to cry. A smile spread across her face. How could I ever not want someone like that by my side? With a broad grin, the Kyuubi pounded one paw on the wooden doors, causing them to gradually open for Hinata. That was exactly what I wanted to hear. Go. Find Naruto, become the true Moon Sage, and tell him I look forward to our next talk. After nodding, Hinata gave in to her desire to enter the castle and entered, the doors closing behind her. The castle's interior was stunning. In front of her was a vast, verdant courtyard with a large cherry blossom tree in the middle, its petals golden rather than the typical vivid pink. At the base of the tree, facing a tiny pond with koi fish swimming around in it, was a modest shrine. Hinata could see foxes running, playing, and sleeping in the warm sun all around her. Large marble walls encircled the courtyard, and 3 doorways led to different halls. The smile that spread across Hinata's face was unavoidable. Warm, inviting and happy. This is definitely Naruto's mind. Hinata noticed a little statue atop the tree as she approached the little shrine at its foot. With a tiny baby in her hands, a stunning woman with hair that reached her calves was grinning broadly. A man with spiky hair and a bright, familiar smile stood next to her, his arms encircling her and the infant. The words that Hinata will never forget were carved in the exquisitely polished stone beneath the statue. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Loving parents of Naruto Uzumaki and heroes for all time. Hinata was aware of the name. The 4th Hokage of the Concealed Leaf, Minato Namikaze, was well known to all. Hinata extended her hand slowly in the direction of the stone. That's why he sealed the Kyuubi in you, isn't it? Because you were his son, Naruto. A picture of a small Naruto appeared in her head as soon as her palm made contact with the stone. Lady Hiroko held him in her arms and gazed at the small child with a mother's affection. Naruto had a photo of his true parents during their wedding in his hands. Hiroko embraced Naruto tightly and planted a kiss on his head. "Your mama and daddy loved you very much, Naruto. They never wanted to leave you." With tears in his eyes, little Naruto sniffed and glanced up at Hiroko. But, does that mean you're not my mama?" Hiroko wiped the tears off Naruto's cheek and turned him around on her lap. "I may not be your real mama, Naruto, but you are still my son. And I'll always love you, sweetie," Naruto said through weeping while throwing his arms around Hiroko in a hug that crushed her bones. After a few seconds, Naruto glanced up at Hiroko with a fresh fervor in his eyes and said, "I love you, too, mama. My daddy was the Yellow Flash, right?" Hiroko gave a nod. "That's right, sweetie. He was the fastest ninja ever. Not even we could catch him if he didn't want us to." "Why?" Naruto grinned. "I want to be just as fast as my daddy. I want to be the new Orange Flash." Hiroko's expression changed to one of curiosity. "Why orange, sweetie?" Hinata could never recall the brightness of Naruto's smile. "Because that's what color you get when you mix yellow and red." She lost the memory, and Hinata covered her mouth with her palms as she stood in front of the little shrine. She could sense Naruto's happiness as he reminisced. The delight of discovering that he had parents. That he did have someone that was interested in him right away. Hinata bowed slightly before the shrine. "Thank you for protecting, Naruto. I'll take it from here." She was pushed toward the northern corridor by a slight breeze that blew through the courtyard. As Hinata began to move down the corridor, she became aware of the images on the walls. In one, Naruto and Kagome were seated together while reading a seal scroll. Another was when he was sprinting while playing tag with Rika and Kagome in their tiny fox forms. Another showed Naruto holding a big cotton candy in his hand while Hiroko was hugging him during a festival. Hinata felt stronger than ever before as a bit more of Naruto merged with her with each memory she shared. Until she reached a sizable section of the wall that was painted with a picture of Naruto grinning. But there was a problem with it. Hinata took a moment to realize what was strange about the image, but it finally dawned on her when she recalled all the images she had seen of Naruto grinning before. The smile was contagious. It was impossible for her to resist smiling after seeing those photos of Naruto's smile. This one didn't. The smile she saw now made her feel nothing. Then she saw it, the look of minor agony around Naruto's eyes. Hinata squinted her eyes. This isn't his real smile. This is that smile he puts on so no one will see how much pain he is in. When Hinata touched the painting, the wall trembled and yielded beneath her fingers. It's just paper. Hinata felt a rush of frigid air strike her like a wall as she tore down the false paper smile with both hands. Behind the false smile, she could see a frozen wilderness. When she looked back, she saw that all of the foxes that were usually playful and joyful had their ears pressed back against their heads and were retreating from the chilly threshold. The air entering the doorway was painful to breathe. However, Hinata was aware that she had to take this route. She sensed it. She inhaled deeply before passing through the icy entryway. Hinata discovered herself in the icy remains of the former castle. There was a dead tree in the center of the snow-covered courtyard, fighting its way through the earth. The surrounding walls were old and crumbling, with random rubble mounds scattered throughout. She had to zip up her coat and draw her hood over her head because the cold air she was breathing was hurting her lungs. But it wasn't the terrible air or the cold ground that was the worst. The shadows were the worst. This area of Naruto's mind contained these terrible creatures made of shadow that appeared to glide just on top of the snow, in contrast to the foxes that had before been racing around and playing. She was unsure if they were men or women. They resembled the shadows cast by mannequins moving through the scenery. However, it was their gaze that made Hinata shiver. They all had these terrible crimson eyes that seemed to be blazing with anger and hatred. Though they never approached Hinata, they were always watching her as she navigated the cold terrain. She heard one of them talk in a gravelly whisper every now and then. Short words like monster, freak, or beast were always used. She heard it murmur, "No one would care if you died," as it slid past. The old woman from the orphanage who had thrashed Naruto as a child appeared as a faceless shadow when Hinata turned to face the ghost. When Hinata saw the woman, she became enraged and threw herself at her, grabbing her by the throat and pushing her against a wall. Hinata didn't care that she didn't know the source of such strength. All she wanted to do was beat that woman to the ground. She screamed, striking the woman's face with her palm. "How could you do that to him?" she asked. She did not detect the flashing silver of a palm hit. As soon as her palm touched the woman's face, a huge explosion occurred, causing the woman to burst into smoke and the wall behind her to shatter like glass. To see if she could do it again, Hinata paused, examined her hand, and hit the wall behind her. All that happened was that her palm ached slightly from hitting the stone, but the stone didn't give. Subsequently, she placed a small chakra in her hand and observed its silvery moonlight glow. As Hinata reached out to touch her glowing hand, she discovered that it bounced off the blazing light as if it had been pushed. Hinata reflected about the moon's nature and recalled Hiroko's statement that the moon sage was all about protection. Then she realized the solution. The moon only shines because it reflects the light of the sun. That's what made the moon sage so dangerous. She could reflect everything. I have the ultimate shield. I must have forced the wall to reflect away from my hand when I touched it back there, and that was why it shattered like that. Hinata experienced a surge of self-assurance. She was no longer even vulnerable to these shadows. With determination, Hinata resumed her stroll, the shadows now merely a nuisance. She noticed additional photos on the wall along the way, but they weren't the same ones. One showed Naruto crying while curled up in a ball by himself in his apartment. In another, he was left alone while he stared at a group of children at a playground while their parents arrived to pick them up. And further image showed a famished Naruto searching for food in the orphanage's trash can. She simply walked more quickly because of everyone. She was more eager than ever to see Naruto, so that she might hold him in that tower bed till they woke up. Hinata gave a headshake. No, I'll just have him move over so I can lie beside him and keep hugging him. He will not spend this night alone. Hinata paused to gaze at the oddly complete picture on the wall. Unlike the others, which were only pieces of paper affixed to the wall with corroded kunai knives, this picture was framed in iron. In that, Naruto had a blazing gaze in his eyes and was glowing orange with the aura of the sun sage. As Hinata tried to touch it, she was abruptly thrust into a room containing Hiroko and Naruto. Naruto was pacing, his expression vacillating between rage and tears. Naruto paused and raised his gaze to Hiroko, his eyes practically begging for clarification. Is this really what the world of ninja is all about? Is hating and killing each other over no big difference but different symbols on our headbands? As more memories of Naruto came flooding back to her, Hinata realized what he was unhappy about. While traveling in incognito, Naruto encountered a family of Earth ninja who allowed him, Rika, and Kagome to stay at their house for a few weeks. The house's husband and wife had a little daughter, whom Naruto grew to love and regard as a little sister. Before the patriarch departed on a mission and died, Naruto was genuinely content with that rock ninja family. Additionally, Naruto learned that he had lost a battle with ninja from the Hidden Leaf. As Naruto stood at the burial, listening to that young girl plead for her father to wake up, Hinata felt all the sorrow and anguish he did. His entire perspective on the honor of being a ninja had been shattered by it. Hiroko gave a nod. If those leaf ninja hadn't won the fight, then some poor child in the leaf village would have been the one crying for their parent that night. This is the way things are, Naruto. Naruto's hands were balled into fists so tightly that his knuckles were white, and he was panting heavily. It's not right. This whole damn system is wrong. Hiroko took a step nearer and touched Naruto's shoulder. Yes, Naruto, it is. All ninjas see the cycle of hatred they are trapped in, but can't escape the darkness of it. That is the fate of those who follow the ninja way. Hinata witnessed the orange light fill the room as Naruto's aura erupted from him. His eyes now had the appearance of blue fire blazing behind them as he turned to face Hiroko. Then that's what I'll destroy. The entire ninja way. You say that there is no way for them to escape the darkness. That's what the sun is for. To drive away the shadows and darkness, no matter how black. I'll become Hokage, and I'll find a way to change the ninja way. I swear it. At that moment, Hinata noticed a prospective Hokage standing in front of her. Someone who would rebel against the status quo. She would walk into hell with that person. Hinata returned to the white courtyard as the memories dimmed. After taking a deep breath, she proceeded to locate Naruto. When Hinata finally emerged into a different courtyard, she saw an army of dark shadows encircling a circle of statues. They were gnawing and clawing at the air surrounding the sculptures, seemingly unable to pass through the threshold. The sculptures of Rika, Kagome, Hiroko, Iruka, that white-haired man, Jiraiya, Kushina, and Minato were visible when she looked up. Keeping the shadows away from something was something that all of the individuals Naruto admired and treated as family did. Then one of the shadows shifted, and Hinata noticed Naruto seated on a little stone bench with seals all over it, which stood in the middle of the statue circle. With a silver light streaming across both of her palms, Hinata started to rush toward Naruto's direction. When she approached the shadows closely enough to shout, Get out of my way. Hinata blew through a large portion of them before they could turn. With her eyes fixed on Naruto, Hinata continued to push forward toward the circle, sending groups of shadows flying away from the shockwaves she created as her hands soared through the air. She eventually passed the circle of statues and found herself facing a beaming Naruto. Naruto gave her a feeble expression as he looked up. It's clear that he's still experiencing the effects of his chakra running amok. Hey there, Hinata. Glad you came. Hinata knelt down and gave Naruto her strongest embrace. I'm sorry I didn't get here sooner. Naruto attempted to give her a hug in return, but he could hardly raise his arms due to their weight. It's alright. I learned a lot while you were on your way here. The patterns etched into the stone instantly came to life as Hinata grinned and took a seat next to Naruto on the bench. I'll bet you did. I learned a lot about you on my way here, too. Nervously, Naruto swallowed. Listen, Hinata. I'm sorry for not telling you about the Kyuubi before. It's just that, I was. Interlacing her fingers with his, Hinata grabbed one of his hands in hers. Hinata moved down and put her head on his shoulder, saying, You were afraid that after I found out the truth, I wouldn't want to sit here. But this is right where I want to be. Naruto smiled broadly and rested his head against the chair. I'm glad. I'm really glad it was you who turned out to be the Moon Sage, Hinata. Hinata curled up against him. So am I, Naruto. I'll never let you feel alone again. I promise. I'll always be there for you, even when we are apart you'll still hear my thoughts with you. Just us two outcasts taking on the world. Glancing up into the sky, Naruto saw a bright full moon piercing the blackness of the freezing tundra, and he grinned. I can't wait till our date, Hinata. Hinata stared up at him, flushed. She laughed at Naruto's perplexed look and said, I can. I waited this long for you to notice me, so I can wait a week or so for our first date. We're together. The rest is just icing on the cake. Naruto smiled broadly. An orange and a silver glow appeared over Naruto and Hinata, respectively, as they sat on the bench, enjoying each other's company. At their achievement, the light from both extended across the ground and blended into the symbols on the chair behind them. The snow was gone from the ground and the shadows were no longer visible as the light grew. The light continued to shine, fixing the walls and erasing the depressing memories until they were hardly perceptible. When the light finally reached the dead cherry blossom tree, it burst into silver petals that gleamed in the moonlight. When the light finally went out, the frozen wilderness had been turned into a serene paradise. A huge castle broke in two. On one side is a serene, tranquil area where all problems appear to vanish, and on the other is a joyful, cozy location where you just want to be. One side was illuminated by the sun, while the other was illuminated by the moon. The sun and moon sages lived in this inner world. As the sun started to drop outside in the real world, every one of the teams were still anticipating what would happen with Naruto and Hinata. Just outside the room where Hinata was still with Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke were with Shikamaru's team, Hinata's team, and the recently arrived team of Lee, Neji, and Ten. The mass of chakra had now subsided enough that Jiraiya could simply erect a sturdy barrier rather than continuously adding more. Ino bent toward Sakura. You really don't know what was up with those weird foxes, Sakura? Sakura gave a headshake. Wish I did, Ino. But they are just as big a mystery to me as everything else going on today. With a frown, Neji sat in the corner of the room and said, Whatever is going on, Hinata should know better than to disgrace the Hyuga name by agreeing to date a failure like that. From close to the door came a firm voice. All turned to see Lady Hiroko standing with a stony expression on her face, still wearing her exquisite kimono. That is my son you were talking about, boy. And you will watch your mouth when you speak about him in my presence. Kiba got to his feet, grinning smugly. Look, lady. We can't help it if your son is a loser. Maybe it's hard for you to realize that when you adopted him you got sold the most broken merchandise in the store, but... Hiroko hissed out a voice that ran through the very souls of every genin in the room. Silence. Kiba tried to speak again, but there was a rush of air and no sound. He made another attempt, but to no avail. He had lost his voice. When Hiroko saw the young boy's disbelief at losing his voice, he grinned. You will regain your voice in little over an hour's time, but I suggest you learn to speak to ladies with respect, boy. Ignoring Kiba's irate glances and silent screams, she stepped past the barrier as if it didn't exist and entered the room where Naruto and Hinata were lying. Then Shikamaru said up. Kiba, that woman just sealed your voice away without using hand signs, written seals, or even touching you. I really don't think you want to push her buttons any more than you have. Shino was standing behind his teammate. Agreed, she seems far more powerful than she looks. Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari were off in a different room, having their own chat while this was going on. Gaara was standing serious, his back to the wall, his eyes closed. Kankuro was occupied with his puppet, Crow, while Temari sat on a couch. Temari addressed Gaara. "We have to tell him, Gaara. We owe him that much." Gaara gave a headshake. "I agree, but I still don't like it. There is no reason for any of this." Kankuro kept his eyes on his puppet. "Baki. Sensei did tell us the reason for all this, remember? This is for the pride of the Sand Village." At that, Gaara began to pace. "So, we are going to attack an ally, a very powerful ally mind you, because it will bring the sand back some pride. We are going to kill so many mothers, fathers, sisters and brothers for pride? We will forever mark the hidden sand as backstabbing traitors? For pride? This doesn't add up, Kankuro." Temari got up to stop her younger brother from pacing. "I agree, but it doesn't change the fact that it is happening, Gaara. We'll find out what is going on later. We'll make sure to try and keep casualties we cause to a minimum if we cause any at all. But, we need to tell Naruto about this. We need the whole family to help get through this, Gaara." Gaara nodded and let out a sigh. "You're right, Temari. Either way, he deserves to know what's coming, but how about we wait till after he has his date with Hinata? Let him at least have that before we drag him into this mess." Temari gave a nod. "Agreed." Rika could be heard shouting, "Something's finally happening in there," as she ran past the door. Gaara hurried out the door right away, followed by Temari and Kankuro, and joined the rest of the group at Naruto's room door. They could see that Naruto and Hinata were surrounded by an orange and silver glow through the barrier. A silvery crescent moon and a fiery orange sun formed over their heads and started to circle one another. Before long, Naruto and Hinata were seen stirring as the light dimmed. Jiraiya stood there, looked at Hiroko inside the chamber, who smiled and nodded before lowering the barrier. Before Hinata could speak, all of the rookies were in the room at once, asking questions. Hinata extended her hand. "Everyone, I'm sorry, but I'm very tired and I would like to know how Naruto is doing. So, could all the questions wait till tomorrow, please?" Then, Kagome entered the throng in human form and started using a diagnostic jutsu on Naruto right away. As Kagome worked, Hinata stepped next to his bed and took his hand in hers. Kagome let out a sigh of relief. "He's gonna be weak for the next couple of days and we'll have to make sure he gets plenty of rest, but he will be fine." After grinning down at Naruto, Hinata turned to face Rika and Mai at the entrance. Mai had also transformed into a person. A lovely woman in her 20s with light brown hair pulled back in a low ponytail and the iconic kitsune hourglass form. She donned a long, sleeved, crimson Chinese style shirt and loose, fitting slacks with ankle and waist straps in place of a kimono. Hinata gave the two a smile. "Would you two mind helping me find a bed we could wheel in here, please? I'd rather not leave him alone tonight." Rika gave a nod. "Sure, there's one in the next room. Mai and I will grab it for you real quick." "Thank you." With a frown on his face, Neji took a step forward. "There will be none of that. It is bad enough that you agreed to a date with this failure, but you won't be disgracing us further by sleeping in the same room as him." Hinata's arms were crossed. "What I do is none of your concern or the concern of the Hyuga clan. I will be sleeping in this room tonight and every night we are in here. If it bothers you so much, then I suggest you find a room on a different floor then." Temari could be heard supporting Hinata from behind Neji. "That girl is my new best friend." Neji started to say anything else, but the Hokage moved to stand next to him and looked at him. The Hokage gave Neji a downward glance. "Hinata has a point, Neji. The Hyuga clan has no business in her affairs after her father disowned her as his successor when she became a genin. So that will be the end of that argument, am I clear?" Neji bent his head and balled his hands. "Why, yes, Lord Hokage." As Rika and Mai carried a bed into the room for Hinata to sleep on, the Hokage turned to face everyone. "Hinata will tell you all you need to know tomorrow. Right now both her and Naruto need some rest. As do you all." Everyone left the room after that, leaving Hinata alone herself with the four fox spirits, the Hokage, and Naruto half awake. And after Kagome and Rika helped a weary and weak Naruto into his pajamas for the night, and after Hinata had changed into her own, she was eager to sleep. Gazing at everyone gathering around his bed, Naruto let out a moan. "Sorry if I worried anyone." Hinata prevented him from sitting up by placing a hand on his chest and gently pushing him back into bed. "Easy, Naruto. You need to rest." At that moment, Naruto realized the sun had already set. God, it's night already. Rika moved to stand next to Naruto's bed as Mai pushed the bed closer to his. Yep. The newly awakened moon sage here spent hours sitting beside your bed to help you get your chakra under control. Seriously, Naruto, we're talking about that date later. This girl deserves something special. The phrase, "I already have something special," was abruptly heard by Naruto from Hinata. He didn't see her mouth move, though. Naruto smiled and blushed slightly as he leaned forward and looked at Hinata. "I heard that, Hinata." Hinata watched with interest. "I didn't say anything, Naruto." Then Hiroko took over. "No, but you thought it. You two are one now, Hinata. He can hear your thoughts." After blushing a little, Hinata turned to face Naruto and smiled warmly. "Well, I wasn't lying." Watching Naruto flush made Rika smile broadly. "Ah, he's blushing. How cute." Despite Rika's taunting, Naruto smiled and moaned a little in bed. "I'd yell at you, sis, but I'm too tired and happy to even start." Rika then transformed back into a little fox and leapt onto Naruto's bed, where she curled up next to him. Kagome then did the same. Hinata had something she wanted to know, but she couldn't help but smile when she saw the three of them together. Hinata raised her gaze to Hiroko. "Is there a way to keep our thoughts private, Lady Hiroko? That might get distracting on a mission." Hiroko gave a nod. Hiroko noticed Hinata yawning and began guiding her to the bed that was less than an arm's length from Naruto's. "Good catch. Picture yourself talking to Naruto in your mind when you want to speak to him. Your thoughts only drifted to him now because your bond is still fresh and you are right next to him. It'll be under control in the morning. Get some sleep, dear. You've got a lot to look forward to tomorrow." She smirked as she turned to face Naruto. "Like helping me keep my son from doing anything other than resting for the next couple of days." Naruto let out a moan. "Am I really that bad about it?" Reaching across and holding one of Naruto's hands in her own, Hinata laughed out of bed. "Yes, you are, Naruto. But I'll help make it easier for you to relax, I promise." Mai leapt up onto Hinata's bed and nestled up next to her in her own light brown fox shape. At that, Hiroko chuckled. "Those three will watch over you tonight. I would feel better knowing there are some people I can fully trust guarding you too." After giving a nod, Hinata turned to face Naruto as Hiroko and the Hokage departed the room. "Good night, Naruto." Naruto let out a yawn. "Good night, Hinata. Oh, and good night Rika, Kagome and Mai." Deep within the tower's interior, while everyone went to sleep for the night, Kabuto was walking into a pitch black room. He was surrounded by tall stone pillars, and the room was strewn with little torches. He also felt a strong chakra in the space while he stood there. Kabuto smiled at it. "I have the information you want, Lord Orochimaru, and some extra that you may find interesting." Orochimaru emerged from behind him, out of the darkness. His lips are being touched by his long tongue. "Oh, really? Well, that extra bit can wait for now. What about Sasuke? Did you get the info I needed on him?" Reaching into his pocket, Kabuto took out a card. "Every bit. Your fight with him didn't offer as much as I had hoped, but we have enough to go with now." The information on the ninja card made Orochimaru smile. "Splendid work, Kabuto. Now, what is this other business you mentioned?" Kabuto repositioned his spectacles. "There was some big commotion today over that boy Naruto and the young Hyuga girl. Seems those foxes are interested in both of them." Orochimaru laughed devilishly. "Well, now, I suppose that means we'll have to keep an eye on them. We could always use more subjects for experimentation." Kabuto sighed dramatically. "Guess that means I'll have to kill them at some point. Shame. Naruto is kind of entertaining. In a naive idiot kind of way." Orochimaru started to go. Orochimaru disappeared in a swirl of purple smoke, leaving Kabuto alone in the chamber. "Quite. But that fun can wait. Sasuke is more important at the moment. We'll look into them when the need arises." Once more, Kabuto pushes his glasses up his nose bridge. "Shame for you, Naruto. You have entered the big game, now." Hinata felt better than she had in years when she woke up the following morning. She got one with her morning routine in the bathroom after quietly getting out of bed so as not to wake a sleeping Naruto, and then she walked down to the kitchen with a human Mai walking next to her. Hinata gave her a look. "I apologize if I woke you up, Mai." Mai simply gave a shoulder shrug. "No worries, Hinata. I'm actually happy I get to know the Moon Sage a little." At the thought of being the Moon Sage, Hinata grinned warmly. "Yes, I'm glad to get to know you too, Mai." Naturally, Hinata was already well informed on Mai thanks to Naruto's recollections. As a kitsune, She was better at barrier and defense jutsu than any form of highly aggressive jutsu. She was naturally inclined to cook, and during Naruto's upbringing, she had taken care to prepare as many nutritious meals as she could. That last portion particularly pleased Hinata. She enjoyed cooking and was happy to have found someone who enjoyed it as much as she did. That morning, she planned to employ that pastime by preparing Naruto's breakfast while she slept. Primarily to keep him asleep in bed that day and because she kept seeing the picture of a young Naruto going hungry. All of the teams had their own breakfasts ready as Hinata and Mai entered the cafe area. Sakura stood up right away and approached Hinata. "Hinata, thank goodness. Please, you have got to tell us what is going on with Naruto and these weird human things." Mai cleared her throat and raised a hand. Sakura's comment made her appear ashamed. "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just, we don't know what's going on here and we would like to know a few things." Hinata merely grinned. "They are called kitsunes, Sakura. Like in the old stories. They are actually Naruto's family." At a table, Kiba laughed, cause no human would call him their family. Mai let out a moan. "God, it's too early to deal with dickheads." Hinata merely grinned. "Don't mind him. He's just angry cause Naruto has a girlfriend and he doesn't." Ignoring Kiba's horrified expression, Ino approached Hinata. "But what was that yesterday with all the lights and chakra going crazy?" Hinata laughed and raised her hands. "Hold on, guys. Let me get started on Naruto's breakfast and I'll answer questions while I do, okay?" After that, Hinata started working on making Naruto a large breakfast and gave the teams there an explanation of everything she felt compelled to. She didn't explain to them any jutsu that she, the foxes, or Naruto could use. She essentially summarized Hiroko's role as Naruto's mother and his sisters, Mai, Kagome, and Rika. Told them that she was merely assisting his chakra in flowing more smoothly after the seal that was placed on him yesterday caused it to go wild. She kept the sage arts and the fact that she could always feel the world's inherent energy flowing through her a secret from them. She reasoned that it would be a pleasant surprise when the test came around. Kiba even kept his mouth shut during the conversation, which went well. Then Hinata's mood altered as Kurenai, Asuma, Guy, and Kakashi entered. Kakashi approached Sakura and touched her shoulder. "Sasuke is going to be out of it for a few days, but that seal shouldn't give him any more problems." Sakura sighed in relief. "Thank goodness." Subsequently, Kakashi turned to observe Hinata quietly assisting Mai in arranging breakfast on a few separate plates so that Naruto, Hinata, and the foxes could all eat together. Kakashi gave Hinata a smile. "So, I take it Naruto is doing better." Hinata didn't even give him a glance. "Why does that matter to you?" Kakashi seems astonished and a little offended. "Because he is my student, Hinata." Sakura watched in awe of Hinata. "Why would you say something like that, Hinata?" Hinata gave Kakashi a chilly gaze as she looked up. "Because I know who Naruto's parents wear now, Kakashi-sensei. And I know who they wear to you." Kakashi placed his hands on the tiny counter that separated the dining area from the cooking area as he approached it. "Naruto's parents wear close to me, yes. But where do you come from saying something so disrespectful?" Hinata yelled at Kakashi and pushed her hands down. "Because you weren't there when he was suffering. With his parents being what they are to you, you should have been the first one to know Naruto was being mistreated by that thing that ran the orphanage." Then, startled by the outburst of rage from her typically reserved pupil, Kurenai got to her feet. "Hinata, he is a Jonin. He has other duties." Hinata gave a savage shake of her head. "No, I don't care how many missions he had to go on. Naruto didn't even know who he was before he became a genin. He just left him to fend for himself against those horrid people who abused him." Hinata waved to every newbie. They at least have an excuse for ignoring him. They didn't know and they were told to ignore him. It's not a great excuse, but at least they have one. She pointed to every one of the Jonin. Hinata entered the dining room and stood directly in front of Kakashi, murder in her eyes, saying, "All of you knew who he was and none of you lifted a finger to help him. But you're the worst of them all. You not only knew who he was, you knew his parents personally and you never bothered to help him." Kakashi felt remorse building in his gut and was unable to ignore it. "I had no choice." With wide eyes, Hinata used her newly acquired sage power to shove Kakashi. The rookie's jaws dropped when he was knocked back against the tables. When he was searching among trash cans for food, Hinata said, "No, you chose to ignore him. You chose to turn a blind eye when he truly hated every day he had to wake up still being him." Her brows sharpened, and she struck Kakashi with her final strike. "For someone who brags about never abandoning their friends, you sure did abandon Naruto easily." After that, Hinata returned to Mai, gathered up all of the breakfast dishes for everyone, and started to make her way back to their room. Kakashi got to his feet. I know I have made some mistakes with Naruto, but I'm working to fix them all now. Hinata did not even falter. Work harder. You have a lot to make up for. The entire Leaf Village does. Kurenai was still in disbelief over her pupil. Hinata, what's gotten into you? Hinata sighed and turned to gaze sorrowfully at her sensei. Someone has to stand up for him, sensei. There's only so much he can do by himself. If Naruto attacks anyone in the village for all the horrible things they say or do to him, all that happens is that it proves them right. He has to put on a smile and pretend like nothing bothers him just to be seen as human in this village. Hinata's gaze widened. I, however, can yell. I can hit and I can fight back. So that's what I'll do. I'll stand by him against all of it. After then, Hinata and Mai walked into Naruto's room from the cafe. Despite Sakura's and the other Jonin's entreaties to return, Kakashi simply got up and left the room. Despite his desire to deny it, Hinata had deeply wounded him. He had failed Naruto, and he couldn't deny it. All he needed was some time to himself, to think. When Naruto returned to the room, Hinata and Mai were bringing in multiple platters of breakfast for everyone. Naruto wanted to assist them in carrying all of the dishes because he was still feeling quite weak. When Hinata noticed him getting up, she made the decision to try out their new connection. Hinata telepathically addressed Naruto while concentrating on a mental image of him. You lay back down. You are resting for the next couple of days, Naruto. I know you prefer to be the one taking care of everyone else, but you better get used to this. I'm going to be around from now on. Naruto smiled and laid down, responding to her. You know, I kinda like the sound of that. After a few seconds, Rika stood up from her position next to Naruto, took a whiff of the air, and gazed at the dishes. Is that deep-fried tofu on those plates? Mai displayed 3 platters. Yep. Hinata insisted she make us all some. At that moment, Kagome awoke as well, and she and Rika transformed into human forms. They then retrieved a plate of breakfast and a chair from the chamber, thanked Hinata, and started contentedly eating breakfast. Naruto scooted closer and spoke to Hinata in her mind as she was ready to sit on her bed. Hinata blushed, but she nodded and sat down by Naruto. No you don't, Hinata. Come sit by me. However, Naruto startled her by kissing her on the cheek before she could begin eating her food. Thanks for breakfast, Hinata. It's really nice of you. Hinata drew in closer to Naruto, unable to control the smile that spread across her face. Wow, maybe I should tell Sakura to try and be a moon sage too. Seems to come with your crush becoming your boyfriend. That caused Naruto to laugh. Yeah, she'd probably beg mom to make her a moon sage too. God, imagine how Sasuke would react to that. Hinata said with a straight expression. He'd scowl, grunt and feel superior to everyone else. Naruto nearly choked while eating, but was able to swallow it before he burst out laughing. Oh, that was perfect. You are awesome, Hinata. Grinning, she grabbed a fork and began eating. I try. Everyone enjoyed the dinner that Hinata had prepared for them, and the remainder of the meal passed in comparatively quiet conditions. Until Rika, Kagome, and Mai finally left the room to go see Hiroko. Naruto was alone with Hinata for a short time, so he accepted it even though he knew it was a lie. Hinata embraced Naruto. See, relaxing isn't so bad. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah, this isn't bad, but promise you'll at least let me sit out on a deck or something later today. I'm gonna go stir crazy without some fresh air. She gave a nod. I figured you would. Naruto made the decision to mention something significant. Hinata froze against him but let him to continue, saying, I know what you told everyone just now, Hinata. I never blamed Kakashi or any of the other Jonin for what happened, but thank you for standing up for me like that. Unaware that she was holding her breath, Hinata released it. Someone should stick up for you, Naruto. Yeah, guess I'm just used to handling it myself. Hinata put her arms around him, embracing him. That's the problem. You had to handle too much by yourself. I should have been your friend from the start, but I was too shy. Naruto gave her a hug in return. Stop, Hinata. You know as well as I that thinking about what could have been won't change anything. We're here now, so we just have to keep moving forward. I like the sound of that. For now, though, I think I'll just stay in this bed with you for a while. I like it here. After that, there was a comfortable silence. Naruto and Hinata simply sat in that tiny room and savored each other's company. It was pleasant and quiet. There was no doubt that life would present its share of challenges. The sun and moon sages, however, put their problems aside for the day and relished the knowledge that they would never again be alone. By no means was Hyuga a person to be liked. Because of his position as the leader of the Hyuga clan, he was obstinate, strong-willed, and extremely entitled. Nothing less than perfection was acceptable to him. When his eldest daughter shown a lack of skill in the Hyuga combat technique and a distaste for conflict, he made the decision to disown her without any hesitation. The Hyuga clan's leader couldn't be a cowardly weakling. He concentrated on raising his younger daughter as an heir and considered it fortunate that she had demonstrated a far better potential for the Hyuga arts. The only question that remained was how to deal with his disappointment at having a firstborn child. She was still a Hyuga, and her actions still affected the clan as a whole, even though she was no longer his daughter officially. His muscles tensed each time he went to read a mission report about her. Allowing her to go on becoming a ninja would only make her a walking shame to the Hyuga clan. For this reason, he had made the decision to brand her with the caged bird seal in the simplest method possible in order to prevent her from embarrassing herself in the future. When they reached adulthood, those Hyuga who were not born into the main branch received a unique seal. In addition to destroying the Byakugan upon the death of the Hyuga wearing it and keeping it out of enemy hands, this seal enabled the main branch to cause excruciating pain to any second branch member who ventured to even glance at Heishi incorrectly. If Heishi were to put the seal on Hinata, he could make her quit being a ninja and accept a career that would be more suitable for a weakling like her. She must have been skilled at some pointless chore, like cooking for the others or cleaning the clan house. A phone rang on his desk as he sat in his study sipping tea that one of the second branch members had poured. Heishi took it up. "This is Heishi Hyuga speaking." Neji, who sounded annoyed, was on the other end. "Lord Heishi, you need to come to the tower in the middle of the Forest of Death immediately." Hiashi's expression hardened. "And why is that exactly, Neji?" Neji's tone grew irate. "Lady Hinata has entered a relationship with Naruto Uzumaki, Lord Heishi." Hiyashi's tea was knocked to the floor as he stood up in front of his desk. "What? She dares insult us further by even talking to that filthy failure?" "Yes, Lord Heishi. She is currently with him in the tower at the center of the Forest of Death." "You did well in calling me, Neji. I will be there within the hour." Heishi fled to the tower after slamming the phone back on the receiver. Naruto hung up his own phone when he was on the other end. Behind him, Rika, Kagome, and Mai were all in their regular fox forms, grinning at Naruto as they sat in front of a little table with a chessboard on it on their new room's tiny balcony. "Did it work?" Naruto turned to her and grinned. Naruto's voice was a perfect replica of Neji's when he said, "Yes, Lady Hinata, your father is on his way now." Hinata laughed a little, but her laughter subsided as she saw Naruto return to their chess game with a slight limp. He still required much more sleep. "I'm sorry you have to do this, Naruto. It's just, I can't stay in that house anymore, it's poison." Mai lay down at Hinata's foot to rub against her as Naruto sat down and reached under the table to take her hand. "Don't worry, Hinata. After I'm done, you won't even have to see that house if you don't want to." With a loving smile on her lips, Hinata stroked the back of Naruto's hand with her thumb. "Oh, really? And I guess the fact that I'll be living with you is just a happy coincidence, then?" Naruto gave a shoulder shrug. "Hey, it pays to be a good guy every now and then." In an attempt to come up with a move, Hinata glanced down at the chessboard. Lady Hiroko had said that since chess needed a lot of thought on both sides, it would assist to enforce their new relationships. It was difficult to come up with a move when Naruto could hear her thoughts, but ultimately, the game wasn't the goal. Hinata moved to steal one of his bishops after grabbing a pawn. "So, the other two are coming as well?" Gazing at the chessboard, Naruto concentrated on his next move. "Yep. Mom said she wanted to sit down and have a chat and some tea with them and they jumped at the chance to get out of their office for a while. And with your dad being the way he is, I don't think he will be in the best of moods when he gets here." As he lowered his rook to put her king in check, Hinata saw. She moved her queen up to take a pawn, saying, "I can't wait to see the look on his face." "Neither can I, Hinata. But, before that fun can happen, we have one little detail we need to take care of." "What's that?" The two of them were put in checkmate when Naruto advanced his knight to a position close to her king. "You need to sign the Kitsune summoning contract." Hinata glanced up at Naruto and grinned at the board. "Good. I've been looking forward to it. Can we do it now? This is the third time we've ended in a stalemate." With a laugh, Naruto got up and his staff appeared in his grasp from across the room. "It would be my pleasure, Hinata." Kiba was irate outside the room. Now nothing made sense. Without a doubt, Naruto was the worst ninja he had ever encountered. Even transformation jutsu was beyond his capabilities at the academy. Why would a loser like him date a girl of Hinata's class? It must be a trick, he had concluded. If they hadn't recognized what a loser Naruto was, no girl would voluntarily go out with him. Hinata was going to realize she didn't want to date him when he showed up. He would then approach her and ask her out. She would most likely seize the opportunity to date someone like Naruto if she accepted a loser like him. As their room's door opened, Kiba saw Naruto leave with Hinata on his arm, followed by those strange fox-like creatures. He was at his breaking point. Hey, what's up, freak? Kiba could tell by Hinata's expression of icy rage that she was aware of his scheme and disapproved of it. However, Naruto's expression was one of bewilderment as he glanced over his shoulder, then turned back to Kiba and gestured to his own chest. I know you didn't mean me. Encouraging the other rookies to come out of their dormitories to witness him put Naruto in his place, Kiba strode forward with his arms out. What if I did? You gonna do something about it? Oh, wait, that's right, you can't. To calm a snarling Rika, Naruto put down his hand, and why would that be? Kiba directly confronted him. Because you are nothing but a loser. A pathetic little freak who couldn't even find humans to adopt him. Hinata started to yell at Kiba, but Naruto's laughter interrupted her. Naruto rested his staff slightly. Naruto gently pushed Kiba forward, almost knocking him down with his natural sage strength. Oh, I get it. You're pissed because Hinata picked me over you, right? This is you trying to punk me out in front of Hinata in order to make her date you, huh? Wow, you have a horrible view of women if you think that's all it takes to get them to date you. Kiba heard Sakura and Ino concur with Naruto from behind him. His anger simply increased as a result. Yeah, big talk for a little pansy. With the hand that was gripping Hinata's, Naruto rubbed his temple. Hinata had released Naruto's arm to fold her arms across her chest and gaze daggers at Kiba. Look, I have got a splitting headache and I really don't have the patience to put up with your bull. So, let's just get to the part where I ram your head through the floor and move on with the day. Kiba stood up. All right, let's go, freak. I'm gonna enjoy putting you back on the floor where you belong. To Kiba, Naruto extended his staff. Just set this over by the wall for me and let's get this over with. Kiba instinctively reached for his staff with both hands. Fine, I'll mow. Kiba only expelled that before the staff burst into dazzling gold flames. Kiba yelled as the chakra from Naruto's staff shot through his entire chakra network in a split second, causing him to drop to his knees from the agony. It seemed like hellfire had started to pour through his veins. With his staff slung over his shoulder, Naruto extended one arm toward Hinata. Sorry about that, Hinata. You want to just sign the contract in here still? Hinata gave Naruto a hug on the arm, primarily to enrage Kiba and because Naruto's legs were starting to tremble. No, this room seems to have some trash on the floor that needs to be cleaned up. Let's just go grab some drinks and then head back to our room. Kiba, whose limbs were still trembling from whatever the staff had done to him, glanced up at Naruto. What the hell was that? Occasionally, tongues of flame danced along the length of Naruto's staff as he held it out in front of him. This staff has some security features in it in case someone that isn't me or the Kitsunes tries to use it. Kiba's muscles jerked and twitched, causing him to fall back down when he attempted to stand. That was a dirty trick. Naruto gestured to his own body. Ninja raised by foxes, remember? Being sneaky and crafty comes with the territory, mutt. As Kurenai approached her student, a dismayed voice from the audience said, and you fell for it, Kiba. Instead of staying, Naruto and Hinata left to grab some beverages before returning to their hotel. Kiba waited for his muscle spasms to stop when Kurenai assisted him to a chair. Fury filled Kiba's eyes as he gazed up at Kurenai. I could have taken him if he fought like a man. Kurenai gestured with his finger. Too bad for you that he fought like a ninja then, huh? Kurenai waved her hand dismissively as Kiba was ready to say something else. No, you be quiet and listen. Kiba Inuzuka. You need to hear this. An opponent who you have openly called out to a fight and embarrassed his girlfriend holds out a clearly special staff and says, hold this for me, and you do it. Great, so now I know that I have to train you to remember that ninja have these things called traps. We use them to catch idiots off guard and end a fight before it can even start. Kiba looked up in embarrassment. I could have taken him. With a sigh, Kurenai turned to go locate a medic to see how her obstinate student was doing. She gestured to the group of rookies, some of whom were laughing a little, primarily Gaara and his siblings. You keep telling yourself that, Kiba. But the reality is that Naruto just beat you without throwing one punch or any jutsu, and he did it while he himself was still so weak he could barely keep from shaking on his legs. And they all saw it happen because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. While Naruto and Hinata were in their room, Naruto was receiving assistance from a human Kagome to create a complex seal on the floor, while Kiba was eventually attended to by a physician. Sitting on the bed, Hinata observed them at work. After a while, Kagome got up and examined their work. Kagome's gaze shifted to Naruto. "You put the blood in the center and lay down, master. I'll summon the scroll, since you look about ready to collapse." Hinata knew he would try to avoid bed when Naruto bit his thumb and made a line of blood in the middle of the seal, so she went ahead and took his hand, returning him to his bed and having him lie down. "Listen to your big sister, Naruto. You still need a lot of rest if you're gonna recover." Naruto sighed and gave up, settling back into his comfortable bed. Before slamming her hands on the seal, Kagome simply grinned and went over a few hand signals. There was a swirl of smoke in the room as the seal exploded into light. After it cleared, there was a big scroll on the floor that was roughly the length of the bed Naruto was lying in. It was exquisitely embellished, with dozens of flaming foxes flashing across the scroll's paper and a gold and silver fox head perched on either side. As the scroll lit white and started to float toward her, Hinata looked in awe. 3 names were drawn in blood on the scroll itself when it unrolled itself. She was astonished by the other 2, but the most recent one was simple to identify because Naruto's name was prominently displayed on the scroll. The names of the early Sun and Moon sages were there, a little faded with age. The sage of 6 paths himself, son and daughter. In law. She felt as though she was facing a sacred artifact. Knowing that her name would soon be next to 2 such names made Hinata feel honored. Hinata gave Naruto a look. "I just write my name in blood, right?" Naruto couldn't help but smile as he sensed the joy and pride coursing through her. "Yep. Just write down your name in blood, then dab a little on the fingers of your writing hand and press it at the bottom. That's all there is to it." As soon as she could, Hinata bit her thumb and started writing down her name, experiencing a kind of pleasant tingle. She dabbed some more blood on her fingers and pressed them to the scroll when she got to the finish. A silver fox slithered up her right palm from the scroll, and her name instantly illuminated silver. Naruto's glowed a vivid orange. When the fox finally settled on her arm, Hinata saw it transform into a tattoo that was just like the one on Naruto's arm. However, instead of holding a sun in its paws, this fox was holding a crescent moon. Kagome approached Hinata and gave her a hug. "Welcome to the family." Humans Mai and Rika cheered and clapped for the new fox summoner over in the corner, demonstrating their happiness at having Hinata with them. Rika got up, approached Hinata, and put a hand on her shoulder. "We have got to throw her a welcoming party when the next part of the exam is over. It's only right." The 2 women, who were rapidly resembling the older siblings she never had, made Hinata grin. Being with individuals who never brought you down felt fantastic. However, the festivities were interrupted as a fox shadow moved along the room's walls and approached Naruto's on the floor. There was a ghostly whisper in the fox tongue that was barely audible, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Naruto's smile turned into a malicious one. He turned to Hinata and said, "Good. It's time for some fun." He grabbed his staff from the bedside and started to get out of bed, with Rika and Hinata approaching to assist him. "Your dad is here, Hinata." After Hinata nodded, the group left for the lobby, where the majority of the rookies were mingling and chatting. Rika and Hinata escorted Naruto to a neighboring chair, where they sat down around him, with Hinata sitting directly next to him. Naruto grinned as he glanced out at everyone. "So, how is Kiba doing?" Shino was the first to speak, sitting close to the window, studying a spider. "Kiba was taken by the medics to wait out the effects of your staff. They say he will be fine by the end of the day." Sakura leaned forward in Naruto's opposite chair. "What is that staff, Naruto? Where did it come from?" Naruto grinned as he glanced up at the employees. "It's an old family treasure. Mom trained me to use it when I got it as a birthday present years ago." Naruto decided it was time for Hinata to test out one of her new sage talents after noticing Shikamaru off in a corner, obviously evaluating things. Naruto talked into her head, concentrating on their connection. "Hinata?" Hinata spoke over their link as well, turning slightly to face Naruto. "Yes? Try and use your aura sight on Shikamaru. It looks like he's trying to size me up." Shikamaru's gray aura gradually disappeared from view as Hinata concentrated on the sensation of the natural energy surrounding her, as if she had seen the elderly fox from Naruto's memories instructing him to do. In the aura surrounding him, she saw what seemed to be gears churning and swirling as symbols and numbers sprang from the gears. While they continued to talk in their own minds, Hinata turned to face Naruto. "It looks like he is. I like this aura sight, but what is he trying to figure out?" Naruto gave a shrug. He knows I'm smarter and stronger than he remembers, and I think he's trying to figure the new me out. Hinata smiled slightly. He'll be in for a surprise when he finds out about the little trick you pulled before you came into the forest. Grinning, Naruto turned to face her. Bet they freak when they find out. Everyone else only watched Hinata and Naruto laughing, smiling, and making various facial expressions with their words as they were occupied with their own internal dialogue. It was an odd scene. Just as Sakura opened her mouth to criticize their strange behavior, Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy entered the room. When Kakashi noticed Naruto sitting in the room and Hinata staring at him sharply, he appeared to halt. But as they entered, Naruto simply waved and grinned brightly at them. She sat down next to Asuma, who was starting a cigarette, and turned to Kurenai, saying, "Hey, senseis. I was wondering where you all were. How's Kiba doing, Kurenai-sensei?" Kurenai gave a shrug. His muscles are slowly beginning to stop shaking and the doctors say he'll be alright soon enough. You handled that very well, Naruto. Asuma gave a nod. Agreed. You managed to incapacitate an opponent without so much as wasting a breath. Hinata saw Naruto blush a little as he wiped his head. Well, to be fair, I just tried that to see if it would work. I didn't know if he would actually be dumb enough to go for it. Curious, Lee turned to face Naruto. So, what would have happened if Kiba had not fallen for the trick? A hand was placed on Naruto's shoulder by Hinata. Naruto heard himself say, "Then I would have stepped up and knocked him out for embarrassing me like that. Because you are not allowed to strain yourself till you can at least walk without your staff. So I'd do it for you." With a smile, Naruto touched Hinata's hand. Normally, I prefer to fight my own battles, but, strangely, I think I'd be okay with you stepping in that situation. Kakashi, who was standing a few steps away from Naruto's chair with a regretful expression in his only visible eye, snapped Hinata and Naruto out of their reverie. Kakashi hung his head and closed his eye. "Naruto, I'm sorry." With my following, Hinata got up and went to the kitchen to get their drinks refilled. Kagome and Rika had remained to sit next to Naruto's chair. And all Naruto could do was look up at Kakashi with interest. About what? Kakashi let out a sigh. "I should have checked up on you more, looked out for you more. For all I talk about friends and teamwork, I seem to lose sight of it out of a mission. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you more as you grew up." Gazing up at Kakashi, Naruto smiled warmly. "You know, I don't blame you for what happened to me, Kakashi." Naruto continued after gaining Kakashi's undivided attention. He gestured to Rika and Kagome and said, "Yes, I had a rough childhood, but look where I'm at now. I've got big sisters and a mom who love me and watch over me." Rika and Kagome smiled affectionately at their younger brother. "I've got a new girlfriend who knows everything, good and bad, about me, and she still likes me. I've got a pretty good life, sensei. And I know that because I've had it so rough. The bad just makes the good that much better." Kakashi smiled at his pupil with pride. "Naruto, your parents would be so proud if they could see you now." Naruto's eyes widened and he reached up to take his mother's jade necklace from his neck. That hit him hard. Thanks, sensei. That means a lot." Everyone was pleased to see Naruto, glad to hear Kakashi's remarks, including Sakura and Ino. It was a pleasant moment. The silence was broken by shouting coming from the next kitchen. The voice of a man yelled out, strong and fierce, "It doesn't matter what a weakling like you thinks. You will do as I command." Then came Hinata's voice, and Naruto sensed her growing more frightened as the discussion continued. I don't care what you think. You disowned me, so it's my choice to go with him." Kurenai was walking down the corridor to her student with a furious expression on her face when Naruto stood up, his legs trembling, and Kakashi, Rika, and Kagome arrived to help him up. Naruto connected his consciousness to Hinata's. "Hinata, what's happening?" He instantly heard the terrified, anxious voice of Hinata. It's my dad, Naruto. He's in here and he's mad. Don't know if." As everyone heard Hinata yell, "Let go of me," her voice was interrupted. Heishi yelled, "No," who was obviously furious. "You will come with me immediately. This embarrassment has gone on long enough." Naruto screamed out because he had officially had enough. Smash that prick." There were booming footsteps and a cry of, "What the?" Before Heishi crashed through the hallway's left wall, slumped at the wall across from Kurenai, and landed at his feet in a fetal posture, gripping his chest in agony as the wall shattered into wood and drywall. Mai appeared in human form from the hole in the wall, and then Hinata hurried over to give Naruto a hug while Rika and Kagome moved defensively in front of them, and Kankuro, Gaara, and Temari approached to protect them as well. But now Mai was no ordinary human. All of her flesh had turned to glittering metal encrusted with whirling symbols. Her voice seemed to reverberate slightly in her metal form as she cracked her knuckles in front of Hiashi's slouched figure while maintaining eye contact. "Get up, I dare you. I will just put you through that wall, too." Breathless, Hiashi glanced up at Mai. "Who are you?" Mai began walking down the hallway to stand next to Hinata and place a protective hand on her shoulder. "I'm her new familiar." Hinata appeared thrilled upon learning that, in theory, Rika and Kagome were Naruto's acquaintances. Usually, it referred to a summoning or an animal that accompanied and shielded a ninja. The Inuzuka clan was known for bringing their dogs into combat, but with the foxes, it took on a completely other meaning. For them, getting to know someone was the same as becoming their family. Mai recently declared herself to be Hinata's older sister. Mai grinned as she turned to face Hinata. "If she would like, of course." Hinata gave a nod. "I would love to have you as a familiar, Mai." Hiashi stood up, pushed Kurenai aside, and started walking in Hinata's direction. "Now, you listen to me, Hinata. You are a Hyuga and everything you do, unfortunately, reflects on the Hyuga. I will not let you drag us through the mud more than you already have by dating this worthless freak." Taking Naruto's hand, Hinata drew strength from him. "What I do is none of your business, father." Despite his snarl, Hiashi was unable to approach Naruto and Hinata because Guy and Kakashi blocked his path. Hiashi glared at the two young ninja, peering over their shoulders. He held up his palm and a bright green X symbol surrounded by various seals appeared in it. "Wrong. As head of the Hyuga clan, everything you do is my business. I was just going to do this when you failed this exam, but I can see it needs to be done now." As he comprehended what Hiashi was going to do, Naruto caught a glimpse of Neji's triumphant smile out of the corner of his eye. Hiashi then grinned as he turned to face all of the Jonin. "And even if they stop me, sooner or later she will come home and be branded as the failure she is. You can't stand in my way." As Hinata and Naruto both received their own mischievous smiles, Hinata abruptly stopped shivering and straightened up. Hiashi pondered for a moment before hearing 4 pairs of feet approaching him from behind. Naruto gave a shrug. He points behind Hiashi, who turns to face the 4 behind him, and his face goes white as he sees the Hokage, 2 members of his council, and Lady Hiroko all gazing daggers at him. "You're right. An orphan like me and even these Jonins couldn't stop the head of the Hyuga clan if they wanted." With his gaze fixed on Hiashi, the Hokage started to approach him. "Am I to understand that you wish to brand and enslave Hinata, one of our most promising rookies, when you gave up all rights to what she does with her life when she became a genin?" The caged bird seal disappeared from Hiashi's grasp as he turned to face the 4. "Lord Hokage, she is hardly." "Silence!" The Hokage yelled, interrupting Hiashi. She points at Hiroko and continues to glare at him as she says, "My council and I have just gotten out of a lovely chat with Lady Hiroko. She told me that Hinata is now one of the only 2 in the village that she can teach ancient techniques that would help the Leaf Village greatly, and then we come out to hear you threatening one of them with, essentially, slavery." The Hokage was now less than an inch from Hiashi's. "My Jonin may not be able to stop you, but I damn sure will." Homura, the male counselor, nodded his head behind the Hokage. "The actions you've committed today are nothing short of disgraceful, Hiashi." Kaharu, the female counselor, gave that a nod. "Be thankful that we have no evidence of you harming Hinata, or we assure you we would be fully in our rights to have the Anbu keep you from seeing her ever again." As Hinata pulled her arm sleeve down to see a severe bruise that had formed where Hiashi had previously gripped her arm, she called out to Naruto, drawing all the attention in the room to her. "Excuse me, will this do?" Hiashi became aware that they had somehow intended for this to occur when he noticed the arrogant smiles on their faces. He had been duped by them. When the Hokage noticed the bruise, he turned on Hiashi with even more ferocity. "That will do it. Hiashi Hyuga. You will have all of Hinata's belongings brought out the Hyuga compound undamaged. You will bring them to a storage facility, and keep them there till we work out where she will live, and you will do it now. And from this moment on, I give my word that if you come near her or Naruto, I will have you in prison so fast it will make your head spin." Despite his anger, Hiashi was aware that he had lost. A convicted criminal becoming the leader of the Hyuga clan would embarrass the Hyuga more than anything else in their history. He was defeated. Hiroko, however, wasn't content with it. As if he were made of paper, she grabbed Hiashi by the throat and lifted him off the ground, saying, "If you don't mind, Hiruzen, I'll have some extra security." Hiashi started to hit her, but he was unable to do so because he felt as though his arm was heavy. A white fiery fox formed among the seals above her hands, and many seals started to appear and disappear around her free hand. "You were trying to brand her with a seal, so I think it would be fitting to give you one of my own." The white fox and all of the seals leapt out of Hiroko's grasp and headed directly for Hiashi's chest, where they dug and burrowed their way beneath his flesh. Hiashi screamed in agony as the white-hot flames began to eat away at him. Rows and rows of glowing seals started to run along Hiashi's entire skin as the rest of the flaming fox's tail disappeared into his chest. All of his exposed skin was swarming with the seals as they ran down his arms and face. The little white fiery fox reappeared with a tiny orb of blue light in its claws and swooped into Hiroko's hand once more as they finished covering him and started to glow from his limbs back to his chest. With fire growing around it, the seals withdrew back to Hiashi's breast, where it took the shape of a little black fox. At last, Hiroko let Hiashi fall back to the earth. Stunned, Hiashi glanced up at Hiroko. What's that orb? What have you done to me?" The blue orb flew in and lighted the lantern, emitting an ethereal light, as Hiroko produced a little statue of a fox with a lantern in its jaws. "I just took part of your soul, Hyuga." Hiroko laughed as she saw the fear on his face. She turned to the Hokage and the council, who gave her a worried look because they were unsure if she would misuse this power over Hiashi. "Don't worry, nothing will happen to you as long as you don't cross me. I'd never do something that would put one of Hiruzen's best ninja out of commission unless I had a reason. No, this will just let me know if you even plan on making a move toward Hinata or Naruto and drop you to your knees if you ever do. And I hereby give my word, as the leader of the Kitsunes, that I will never use it to hurt or inconvenience Hyuga unless he makes any action against anybody that I care about. This includes Hinata, now." The Hokage gave a nod. "Knowing you, Lady Hiroko, that is all the reassurance I need." Rika knelt down to whisper to Naruto and Hinata as she took in everything that was happening in front of her. Ninjas have nothing on moms protecting their kids. As they watched Hiroko pocket the little statue and turn to face Naruto with a kind grin, Naruto and Hinata simply nodded in shock. "Honey, you look like you're ready to fall over if anyone steps aside. Hinata, would you please get back into bed and lay down for a while? I have some good news I want to tell you both about." Naruto grimaced, but after seeing his mother extract a man's soul, he knew better than to fight with her. "Yes, Mom." Naruto's arm was taken by Hinata. "I'll make sure he stays there, Lady Hiroko." Hiroko moved to the front. Hiroko bent down and gave Hinata a tender embrace, saying, "Hang on, sweetheart. I almost forgot." Since her mother's passing, Hinata had not experienced such a hug, so she sat there in shock. Feeling Hinata wrap her arms around her and give her a hug in return, Hiroko grinned. "I felt it the second you signed the contract. Welcome to the family, Hinata." As though it were his own, Naruto sensed the joy coursing through Hinata. He was starting to question how he had managed to avoid Hinata's connection as the Sun and Moon Sage for so long. Withdrawing from the embrace, Hiroko brushed away one of Hinata's tears. "That was very brave of you to stand up to your father, and I'm proud of you both for outsmarting him like that, but you should never be so quick to let yourself be harmed. You have people that want to see you alive and happy, so please take care of yourself." With a few joyful tears in her eyes, Hinata snuffled and nodded, "I will." Clearly trembling on his legs, Naruto moved up to stand next to him. "We'll keep each other safe. That's what the Sun and Moon Sages do, after all." Hiroko glanced at the gathered rookies while running a hand across her son's hair. "I'm sorry you all had to see that, but I believe you should let Naruto into his bed before you hound him with questions." Temari moved forward to examine Hinata's damaged arm. "Geez, that guy is an ass, no offense." Hinata gave a shrug. "It's the truth, so none taken." Temari turned her gaze to Kagome. Temari saw the bruise on Hinata's arm gradually disappear, as if it had never been there, and she stopped short in her tracks. "Can you patch up her AR?" she asked. "Never mind. The bruise isn't as bad as I thought." Shikamaru appeared as Naruto and Hinata were returning to the room. "Hang on a second. I've got something to ask, Naruto." "Can it wait till I'm back in the room?" Shikamaru gave a headshake. "No, because I want them to hear this, too." Hinata approached Naruto's side to support him. "What is it, Shikamaru?" He squinted his eyes. "Hinata didn't go to the kitchen to get a drink for you. Kakashi just gave her a solid alibi to go to the kitchen, where she knew her father was going to be to start this whole fiasco." Naruto conversed with Hinata. "Seems he's as smart as we thought, Hinata." As she responded to Naruto, Hinata nodded while maintaining a neutral demeanor. "We need to be more careful around him." Shikamaru continued. As Shikamaru continued, Naruto and Hinata stood motionless. You knew those four were nearby and you knew they would come out to catch Hiashi in the act and get Hinata protection from him. And I know this because Hinata stopped shaking the second those four showed up. What I cannot figure out, however, is how you knew exactly where Hishi was in the tower. You may have done something to get him here, but how could you have known where he was once he was in the tower? Except for Gaara and his siblings, none of the other rookies had noticed what Naruto and Hinata had. Shino's and Neji's shadows briefly protruded a tiny fox head inside Ino before vanishing into their shadows, and Hinata heard a low chuckling sound coming from the wall behind her. Naruto simply grinned. Why spoil the surprise? Ignoring Shikamaru as he demanded answers behind him, they all returned to the room to get Naruto back into bed. Hiroko entered the room shortly after Naruto was put back in bed and threw 2 keys into Hinata's hands. Hinata gave them a perplexed expression. One key was only a typical household key. From what she could gather, it might have been for Naruto's residence. The other one was a very other matter. There were 4 distinct, strangely shaped prongs on the end of the enormous key. Before recalling it from one of Naruto's memories, she had never seen the polished silver key with its unique markings and seals. This was the key to the Lost Valley, the fox's home. Hiroko gestured to the key. The Lost Valley, as you know, can only be reached by those who have those keys. As the Moon Sage, you are more than worthy of having one. Just put some of your chakra into it and not only will no one but you ever be able to use it, but it will appear in your hand should you ever lose it. The key was held close to Hinata's chest. Thank you, Lady Hiroko. Hiroko gave a nod. Just place the key onto any door and turn it 1/4 to the right and whatever door you use will become a portal to the Lost Valley. Suddenly holding his own golden key, Naruto spoke up from the bed. These came in handy whenever we seem to have outstayed our welcome in our travels. It's an instant, get out of trouble, tool. Just add 1 door. Hinata glanced at the other key while giggling. What is the other key for, Lady Hiroko? She grinned. Your new home. Both Hinata and Naruto glanced at the key before turning back to face Lady Hiroko, and then Naruto simply spoke. You bought us a house just now? I would have, but it turns out there was a perfectly fine house the Hokage was more than happy to let you, Hinata and the rest of us live in. Hinata glanced at the key below. This must be a pretty big house to hold all of us. Hiroko's eyes shifted to her kid, and her expression softened. It should be. The last people to live there were your mother and father, Naruto. Naruto sat there in startled stillness, and Hinata could feel the shock coursing through his body. Knowing that this meant a lot to him, Hinata stepped up beside him and placed the key in his hand. With the key in his grasp, Naruto closed his hand. The Hokage is just letting me move into my parents' house. Hiroko gave a headshake. When Hiroko saw Naruto looking up at her with the same shocked expression, she stepped forward to run her hand through his hair, while Hinata moved to his side and rubbed his arm. According to his will, your father is letting you live there. Your father was the kind of guy who planned ahead for everything. He knew he might not always be there for his wife and child with the risks of being the Hokage, so he made sure you would always have a place to call home. The terms of the will state that you can have the house as soon as you turn Chunin or the Hokage decides you are capable of living there on your own. He was going to wait to give it to you as a gift after you became a Chunin, but I made him a deal he liked. At last, Naruto spoke. What was that? Hiroko gestured to her own body. That I would live there too as your legal guardian. As Hinata felt the rush of joy flow through Naruto, she put her hands to her mouth. Knowing that he had a house at last made him very happy. An actual house. It was a real house, not an apartment where he went to sleep at the end of the day and was reminded that he was alone. A place full with people to greet his return. Hinata leaned against him. I'll come over every day, Naruto. Once I find my own apartment. Hiroko laughed. No, sweetie. You're living with us. You two are the sun and moon sages. Therefore, you are strongest when you are near each other. If you can, you should always try and be close to each other. Hiroko glanced at Naruto. Within reason, young man. Just because I'm letting her live with us doesn't mean I'm giving you permission to make out whenever you want. Naruto blushed in shame as he looked up. Mom. With a simple giggle, Hinata pushed Naruto back into bed by placing a palm on his chest. Calm down, Naruto. You still need to rest. Hiroko gave a nod. Listen to your girlfriend, Naruto. Get a nap and heal up. The exams have not ended yet. Later on today, we're going to the Lost Valley for a bit. Naruto yawned as he suddenly realized how exhausted his recovering body was. Ah, what for, Mom? Hiroko began to walk out of the room. Well, our new moon sage can't go into the next round without at least a little bit of training in her new powers, can she? Hiroko started to go, grabbing her own gold and silver key and making her way to their room's closet. When she put the key on the lock, Hinata saw the most elaborate and complex set of seals she had ever seen. All of the seals moved in various directions before blazing a pale green light when Hiroko turned the key to the right. They all looped and whirled, circled and twisted all around the door. Hinata witnessed what she could only describe as a portal to paradise as Hiroko opened the door. Before a majestic pagoda that loomed into the sky, the door opened out into a meadow. There was a marble road going up to the pagoda, which was adorned in statues of gold and silver. Numerous buildings in the Leaf Village were dwarfed by the enormous trees that surrounded them, and a variety of flora flourished across the area. But Hinata's first impression of the male kitsunes was more startling than the building itself. They were huge. While dozing, drinking from a big lake, or carrying what looked like building supplies, this towering beast shook the ground with its footsteps. They dwarfed most of the things she had seen, but none of them were even close to the size of the nine-tailed fox. Hinata was aware that this contributed to the fact that the majority of the foxes she encountered beyond the Lost Valley were females. Males were only called in when buildings needed to be dropped since they had learned how to change their size and shape. Hinata smiled as she saw a female kitsune transform into a gorgeous redhead before yelling and waving at a male kitsune with gray fur to change so they could go on a date. Hiroko turned back to face Hinata and Naruto. "I'm gonna have your stuff moved into the house so we can move in as soon as you finish this exam. You two rest till I get back." The remainder of the day proceeded largely without incident. Naruto and Hinata talked to their buddies while lying in bed for a while. Since Mai was also more of a defensive fighter, Hinata learned that she would be doing some of her training going forward as her new familiar. She also struck up a lengthy conversation with Temari and became friends with the Sand Kunoichi right away. While Naruto caught up with Gaara and Kankuro from his bed, they were both laughing and sipping tea. Naruto and Hinata were later taken to the Lost Valley for Hinata's initial training session. Like the gentle fist approach, she was a little afraid that she wouldn't understand anything they said and would simply let them all down. To her surprise, however, the Moon Sage fighting style and jutsu were a perfect fit for her. She simply took in what the foxes taught her, and she was thrilled to have at last discovered a look that worked for her. She was never poor at the gentle fist because of her incapacity, according to her professors Mai and Ryu, the gray fox who had taught Naruto Orasight. The style simply did not fit her. For Hinata's innately flowing and elegant tastes, it was too stiff and inflexible. Hinata grinned at her amazing day as the two sages retired to their room later that evening for much needed slumber. Naruto and Hinata were the last to get into bed, with the rest of the others in the tower already asleep. Even the weary Hinata's eyes turned to the door as the door to their chamber creaked open, and a fox shadow appeared to whisper a warning in Naruto's ears just as he was beginning to nod off. Only to observe a number of ninjas with face masks and the Sound Village emblem on their heads. Naruto's voice was impatient as he spoke. "You know, you lot are taking a big risk here. Coming in to attack someone when there are Jonin and the Hokage in the building. Smart." Never once did the head ninja blink. "Don't worry, brat. Lord Orochimaru has assured us that you two won't be any trouble capturing, so just come along quietly." Since there was something going on in the room behind the Sound Ninjas, Naruto and Hinata put that small piece of information concerning Orochimaru away for later. The shadows were spreading behind the little group of Sound Ninja, but they were unaware of it. It spread across the windows, the ceiling, and the walls, gradually and slowly transforming the space into a dark pit where no light could enter. Their lookout had already left, so they never noticed. Rika and Kagome were awake and snarling next to Naruto on the bed when Naruto reached down to pat them. "You guys came in from the back, didn't you?" Because he had done it correctly, the head ninja winced a little. "How did?" Hinata rushed out to soothe Mai, but Naruto interrupted him. "You came in from the back and made your way through the stairways that would take you the farthest from the Jonin and Hokage. At one point you even jumped out a window and climbed up the side of the building to get at us." Now, the head Sound Ninja sounded anxious. "How do you know that, boy?" A number of pairs of big red eyes emerged in the darkness behind the ninja, and growls could be heard piercing the darkness as the room came to life. When the ninja heard it too, they turned to find the eyes staring at them before being violently and abruptly pulled into the shadows. They were standing at Naruto's door one moment, then they vanished into the darkness without a single scream, and the door closed behind them. As he and Hinata reclined to sleep, Naruto closed his eyes. "I know because you can't hide in the shadows when they're helping me." There was not even a hint of the ninja's presence outside the chamber. There were no broken glass pieces, overturned tables, or indications of any kind of battle. The moonlight returned to the room as the shadows vanished as quietly as they had appeared. When the foxes dropped the ninja off for questioning that morning, Ibiki would see them again, but that evening they were gone. They had been pulled away by the shadows. Sakura was thinking about the changes she had seen in Hinata over the past several days as she and her team stood in a huge stone stadium with a gigantic stone statue of a ninja hand sign towering over everyone in the room. She appeared happier than ever, but she was still the sweetest girl she had ever met. And not in a bubbly, airhead, obnoxious kind. All of a sudden, Hinata seemed to enjoy being herself. She had caught her dancing in the common room with Mai and Rika one morning. Hinata was there with a carefree smile and a lively dance. Sakura wondered what was happening, and Mai simply switched off the radio for a moment to respond, training. Then they started dancing again. When Naruto joined Hinata in dancing, her smile grew even wider. In front of her, Naruto was also evolving. The more he spent time with Hinata, the more at ease he became. In the 5 days they had spent in the tower, the two had grown inseparable. In addition, they had changed their attire. Like a temple priestess, Hinata wore a white top that resembled a kimono and had long sleeves. The top's white was adorned with flowing black patterns that blended into the back's black crescent moon. Hinata wore a plain white shirt with some mesh armor over it, which was barely visible underneath the robe because it didn't open in the front. Her robe fell down on her front and back in flaps, revealing her cozy black leggings, which were tied around her ankles to prevent her from tripping. In contrast, Naruto had exchanged his hoodie for a coat that draped down to his legs and featured a high collar that concealed his face just below his eyes. Orange flames danced down the edges and sleeves of his black garment until they blended into a fiery sun on his back. He continued to wear a dark orange shirt with a swirl design on the front, and she discovered a few days earlier that his mother's necklace was adorning his neck on a brand new silver chain with tiny links engraved with seals. To prevent his necklace from slipping off during combat, she surmised. When Hiroko delivered them their new clothes, which a fox tailor had created particularly for them, Hinata had been ecstatic. However, Naruto's response changed when he saw himself wearing his new coat in the mirror. For a few seconds, he simply gazed at himself, his face displaying astonishment as if he were incredulous at what he was witnessing. Sakura recalled how Hinata had softly approached Naruto from behind while wearing her new outfit and placed her chin on his shoulder to give him a back hug. "I really do look just like him, don't I, Hinata?" was all she heard Naruto remark. Then, intuitively sensing that this was a private moment between the two, all the rookies left them alone. They were now waiting to hear from the Hokage, standing together at the front of their respective squads. Stood the Hokage, Lady Hiroko, Iruka, Anko, Ibiki, and all of their Jonin senseis. Aside from the sound team's sensei, who for some reason was unable to attend, were up in front of all the assembled rookies, including the sound team, who had come on the 5th day to Team 7's wrath. Those three were not present because Mai, Rika, and Kagome were busy transferring belongings into their new house that day. Anko whispered to the Hokage after spotting Sasuke in the throng. "We're still allowing that brat to compete?" The Hokage looked in her direction. "I know the risks of the seal on him just as well as you, Anko. But it has been sealed, so I doubt there is any threat." There was a faint chuckle coming from behind Anko and the Hokage. Kakashi stated what the Hokage and Anko already knew. "You think he would just let you take him out of the exams anyway? He is Uchiha, after all." Before Anko's ranting could begin, the Hokage raised a hand. "Which is why we will let him compete under our close watch. I would rather something happen in front of us so we will be able to act accordingly than it happen out on some mission and have him lie about it to us." The Hokage took the stage and informed all of the novices that a competition between the surviving competitors would be the next testing round. Without engaging in open combat, the villages were able to demonstrate their strength in this way. Of course, they may still become Chunin if they demonstrated that they were deserving of the rank, even if they lost in the subsequent exam phase. They would soon be competing in a tournament with visitors from every village. To witness them battle would be members of the royal family, diplomats, wealthy businessmen, and representatives from every village. Another ninja materialized at the Hokage's feet as he was wrapping up his remarks. Dark circles around the ninja's eyes, and his untidy brown hair protruded from beneath his cap. Style leaves headband. Hayate, the ninja, raised his voice. Hayate coughed a little from a cold he was having and said, "Lord Hokage, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a slight problem with the number of contestants left." Naruto conversed with Hinata. "Poor guy looks like he needs about as much bed rest as I did." Hinata gave a nod. "Agreed. He can have your bed, since you don't need it anymore." Both Naruto and Hinata were engrossed in their own chatter and only partially understood Hayate's words. It seems that so many novices passed the exam's second section that a preliminary round was required to reduce the number. Naruto wasn't shocked by this, but he was taken aback when Kabuto raised his hand to end the test. Kabuto caught Naruto's attention. "You're leaving?" Naruto's skin crawled when Kabuto offered him his biggest smile. "Sorry, Naruto. But ever since that sound ninja got me with that technique, I've lost hearing in my left ear, and to add that to fighting just after an exam is just too much for me." Kabuto's eyes narrowed a little further as he turned to face Naruto. "It's a pity. I actually wanted to see what you were capable of." Given that his aura became bladed the moment he spoke it, Naruto understood the double meaning right away. Naruto also narrowed his gaze a little. "Oh, I'm sure you'll see what I can do soon enough, anyway." For a moment, Kabuto's gaze were ferocious. For a brief moment, a vicious and bloodlustful expression crossed his face, and Naruto knew it was directed at him. Although he was unaware of Kabuto's strategy, he was aware that Naruto would have to battle him as a result. Naruto could tell by that glance alone that Kabuto was an enemy from that moment on. Kabuto grinned. After saying, "Looking forward to it, Naruto," Kabuto left Naruto without turning around. After turning around, Naruto turned to face Hinata. "I swear, I'm gonna beat the hell out that guy." Hinata had also figured out what their chat was really about. "Somehow, I don't think he's gonna give you a choice in the matter, but he'll have to fight both of us when he does." Following that brief incident, Sasuke and a member of Kabuto's side were chosen to battle in their first match. Sasuke was first taken aback by his opponent's ability to drain his chakra during the brief bout, but he used a letter from Lee's book to land a winning taijutsu kick to the man's head. Subsequently, Sasuke was raised to rejoin his team. The remaining member of Kabuto's team faced Kankuro in the next matchup. Gazing down at the opponents, Naruto laughed. "Kankuro already has a leg up on this guy." Sakura made an effort to see what Naruto was discussing. "What do you mean? What did he do?" All Naruto did was point. "Watch, you'll see soon enough." Kabuto's teammate started the fight by wrapping Kankuro in his arms and strangling him with an odd jutsu that made his body resemble a snake. Kankuro continued to tease the ninja without blinking. The ninja eventually lost patience, and the arena echoed with a loud snap. Sakura was appalled that Naruto remained composed as she gazed at him. "Isn't he a friend of yours, Naruto? How can you just stand there after he's been killed like that?" Naruto gestured toward the pair on the arena floor. "Because you can't break that thing's neck." Before Kankuro's head fully rotated to gaze at the ninja, Sakura turned just in time to see his face peel off. In the following second, the ninja was encircled by 4 wooden arms that pressed him till bones snapped. Kabuto appeared from the wrapped bundle on the ground, using his fingers to make his puppet tighten the ninja's grip. Sasuke merely gave a groan. So, a puppet master. He had the puppet out there as bait for his opponent and capitalized once he took the bait. As Sakura's aura started to fade, Hinata glanced over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "What's wrong, Sakura? You look like you're ready to have a heart attack." While medical personnel carried Kabuto's partner on a stretcher, Sakura simply signaled to Kankuro to come back up and stand with his siblings. "I thought I had a one-up on everyone here with my chakra control, but these people can control it just as well as me." This time, Naruto raised his voice. "It's not what you've got, Sakura. It's how you use it. Remember, we are the ones who managed to outsmart a Jonin with a shuriken and a disguised clone, so you just have to think on your feet." As Sakura began to feel better, she watched as the next competitor took over for a match. This time, Shikamaru was facing Kin, a female sound ninja. Leaning forward, Naruto and Hinata watched this duel with great interest. It was an outstanding match. Shikamaru began by being imprisoned in a genjutsu of Kin's that used strung bells to manipulate his skull and left him for a while with senbon lodged in his skin. Until Kin simply ceased to move. To ensure that no one saw Shikamaru's shadow ownership jutsu contact Kin's shadow, he had strung it along the wire that was strung up to the bells. Shikamaru then simply leaned backwards rapidly, causing her to strike her head against the wall behind her, knocking her out and giving him the victory. Naruto continued to watch Shikamaru. Just like the shadows said, he stays cool in the middle of tough situations and figures out ways to use his shadow possession jutsu to his advantage. "We need to throw a curveball at him if we ever go up against him. Throw his thinking off." Hinata concurred. "Seems like we'll have our work cut out for us in this exam. We can't let ourselves underestimate anybody." As the next match appeared on the screen, Naruto took a deep breath and glanced up at the board. "Oh, boy. Sakura, you may want to look at the screen." Sakura glanced at the television and saw that she and Ino would be facing off in the following battle. With both of their squads watching with pity, The two prepared themselves and headed out to the arena. Naruto let out a moan. Poor Sakura. They just started to get along with each other again, and now they have to fight. With a groan, Sasuke turned to face Naruto. Sakura had better get over it. Ninja have no place for feelings to get in the way. Naruto turned to give Sasuke a stern look. Every time you open your mouth you make me want to beat the hell out of you. Sasuke grinned. Then do something about it, loser. Between them, Hinata placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Not here, Naruto. You'll both get kicked out of the exams. Even though he is being a jerk. Sasuke gazed down at Hinata. So the princess really did get a spine, huh? Hinata simply glanced over her shoulder at Sasuke. Yes, and if you had stopped brooding and feeling sorry for yourself for a few seconds and talked to everyone, then you would have known that already. Sasuke grinned. Whatever, princess. Hinata blushed and grinned as Naruto put his arm around her waist in a passionate embrace. Hey, she's my princess, Uchiha. So watch your mouth. As Naruto defended her in front of everyone, Hinata felt herself flush. Her gaze was fixed on Naruto's eyes. You know you are so getting kissed when we go out on our date, don't you? As Naruto blushed and flashed a silly little smile, Hinata laughed and turned back to face the arena. Simply to witness Sakura and Ino engaging in combat using taijutsu that could be performed by a first-year academy student. Attempting to persuade themselves to fight like they meant it, the two of them were attempting to force themselves to attack each other sincerely. However, each time they did, all they saw was their best buddy, with whom they had fought pointlessly for years. This continued until Sakura was slapped across the face by Ino. Sakura touched her face, her eyes hardening. Ino, neither of us are going to get anywhere fighting like this. I'm glad to have my best friend back, but as my friend you can't baby me here. I'm not the scared little girl who you helped become more confident, and I want you to take this seriously. You are the one ninja who I want to test my skills against, so, please, fight me. After giving a nod, Ino inhaled deeply. Yeah, you're right. We're embarrassing ourselves fighting the way we are. After removing their headbands, Sakura and Ino knotted them around their foreheads. Sakura turned her gaze to Ino. This is where I show how much I've grown, by beating my rival. With a loud thud, their fists made contact as they pushed for one another. Ino immediately separated the two of them in an attempt to devise a solution, but Sakura was on her. With the words of Hinata and Naruto still vivid in her mind, Sakura quickly created two traditional clone jutsu. Sakura hurried over to Ino. It may be an old jutsu, but if I throw some chakra into my feet for speed then it'll throw her off. When Ino attempted to distinguish between the two, the clones were too quick and the three fists confused her enough that the real Sakura made contact and sent Ino hurtling through the air. For 5 minutes, the conflict continued in this manner until Ino finally had enough. Sakura was snarled at by Ino. This can't be happening. You shouldn't be able to keep up with me like this. Sakura grinned. I guess you should have been more worried about training than your hair, huh, Ino? Before making a well-known hand gesture, Ino roared and chopped off her blonde hair, flinging it at Sakura. Sakura merely grinned. Ino, you know that jutsu won't work here, right? Yes, you can take over my body, but it's too slow to hit me as long as I can move. Naruto was occupied in looking around the field. There was a problem. Despite being a Sasuke fan, Ino wasn't stupid enough to use her jutsu when it was obviously ineffective. Ino did what? Mind transfer jutsu, Ino exclaimed, and then Sakura grinned as her body sagged forward. Sakura murmured, see, as she approached Ino, you missed. The moment Sakura stepped on Ino's chopped hair, Naruto realized what Ino had done. Sakura, it's a trap. But when Sakura abruptly realized she was unable to move her feet, it was too late. She was captured by Ino. With a triumphant grin, Ino glanced up at Sakura. Got ya. I used my hair with some chakra to stop you from moving. Now there's no way for you to avoid this. Ino's mind transfer jutsu bonded with the hand seal, allowing Ino to take control of Sakura's body. Naruto shouted to his teammate while grabbing the railing. Sakura, do not let her take you down so easily. You fought way too hard just to lose now. Sakura raised her hand, and Ino in her body grinned. Yell all you want, moron. Because she can't hear yo. After Ino finished talking, she became aware that she was unable to move her arm and that Sakura's mind was fighting back against her within her head. Sakura's determination was too powerful and pushed Ino out of her thoughts despite her best efforts to cling on. Now, the two were scarcely able to stand and were on their last legs. With their last strength, the two charged at one another and delivered ferocious blows to each other's faces. Destroying one another. They were taken up to the rafters to sleep off their match after being picked up by their respective senses. Hayate raised a hand down in the arena. There will be a 10-minute recess for everyone to go to the restrooms or grab a drink. With the exception of Gaara's squad, Naruto, Hinata's team, and a few other lingerers, almost everyone left to get some refreshments. And Kiba approached Naruto just as he was beginning to relax. Kiba gave Naruto a look. "Oh, look. The loser doesn't have his staff. How you gonna fight now, huh?" Naruto sighed loudly. "Really? Again? What is your deal, Kiba?" Kiba gestured at Hinata. "My problem is that a girl like her is too good to be with trash like you. A catch like Hinata should be on the arm of a strong ninja with some kind of standing, not some loser like you." When Naruto heard Hinata in his mind, he ran to scream at Kiba. "Stand down, Naruto. This one is mine." Naruto stepped back and joined Gaara and his brothers, who were all excited to see the performance. Kiba staggered a few feet as Hinata walked up and shoved him. "I have had just about enough of your meathead attitude, Kiba. I am not some trophy to be worn on someone's arm and shown off." Kiba raised his hands. Hey, girls say that, but in the end they all want a guy who's strong enough to protect them. I can do that better than him." Hinata gestured to her own body. "How about I protect myself, Kiba? What do you say to that?" Kiba gave a small laugh. "Look, I know Kunoichi can be strong ninja, but they won't ever be as strong as a man. Why do you think all the Hokages wear men? Look, it's cute that you think you want to fight off everything now, but you'll want a man to handle it soon enough. All girls do." Naruto gave Temari a look. $10 says she slaps him. Temari laughed. "I bet 20 she kicks him in the nuts." Naruto gave her a handshake. "You're on." At this point, Hinata was moving closer to Kiba, forcing the kid to retreat with each step. "See, this is why I am so happy to have Naruto as a boyfriend. Not only is he a gentleman to me, but he always believes in me as a kunoichi. He's always encouraging me and pushing me to be better, while you seem to just want a mannequin with no wool of her own." Now that Kiba was falling behind Hinata, all of the rookies had begun to return. Hinata directly confronted Kiba. "Listen up. I am dating Naruto Uzumaki. I'm gonna keep dating him, hugging him, and even kissing him no matter what anyone thinks. You will stop this caveman stuff today whether I have to make you or not, understand?" Hinata struck Kiba across the face just as he opened his mouth again. Temari took $10 out of her pocket and handed them to Naruto as Kiba cradled his face in his hand and Hinata returned to Naruto's side. As Hayate started selecting the next two to fight, Kiba, who was just recovering from the slap, got to his feet and glanced at them both. "I hope it's my turn next. I want to hit something." Gaara grinned as she glanced at the television before turning back to Kiba. "Be careful what you wish for." Kiba felt his blood run cold as he glanced up at the television. He and Gaara of the Desert faced off in the following match. Gaara made a hand gesture before vanishing in a whirlpool of sand and reappearing on the arena floor. Gaara raised her gaze to Kiba. "Let's go, mutt. I haven't got all day." Kiba was about to pee his pants when Naruto turned to look at him. "What's the matter? You were Mr. Big Stuff a second ago." Kurenai glanced at Kiba below. "Go on, Kiba. You talk too much to back out now." Both Akamaru and Kiba descended and assembled in front of Gaara. Kiba dropped to his knees and pounced at Gaara as soon as the game began, hoping to be fast enough to hit him before his sand could get in the way. But the sand moved too quickly, and Kiba's elbow was stopped dead in its tracks by Gaara's sand. Gaara glanced at Kiba below. "I hope that's not all you can do." Before another smacked Kiba into the ground, a burst of sand suddenly threw Kiba into the air. Before Kiba could even get his aching body to move, another sandblast hit the spot where he had been a second before. Sakura turned to Naruto up in the rafters. "How is he doing that? He's not even making a hand sign." Naruto gave a shrug. "No one knows how. He's not manually controlling the sand. Ever since Gaara was little, the sand around him would react automatically when anything tried to harm him. It's why Gaara is such a fierce opponent. He's got one of the strongest defenses out there." Now, Sasuke was intrigued by this match. Has anyone ever managed to get around it? Kankuro laughed. "One person did." Sasuke gave him a look. "Who was that?" Kankuro gestured at Naruto, who simply shrugged when Sasuke gave him a wide-eyed stare. Sasuke's gaze grew strained. "I wish it had been you I fought, so I could bring you down a little." Naruto grinned. "The way you are now, I wouldn't even break a sweat with you." Kiba had slipped a meal pill into both Akamaru's and his mouths down on the arena, making Kiba appear more like a beast and turning Akamaru red. Akamaru roared. transformed into a clone of Kiba, and the two charged at Gaara. Roared Kiba and Akamaru started spinning, and Kiba exclaimed, "Let's see if your sand can handle two different directions at once." Fang over fang. They yelled as they flew toward Gaara from both sides like flying drills. As the sand created two barriers on either side of him, halting the two in their tracks, Gaara remained motionless. The two drills persisted in their valiant attempts to breach Gaara's protection, but the sand they destroyed simply kept reforming. They were not making any progress. With a sigh, Gaara made a hand gesture and pressed his palms up against the two walls of sand. Twin sand coffin. Suddenly, Kiba and Akamaru were ensnared in the sand walls they were excavating, which held them there and prevented them from moving. Kiba screamed for Gaara to release them as they fought and struggled against the sand. That is, until Gaara put sand over his mouth and nose and remained there until he fainted. Kurenai seemed concerned for her student, and Gaara looked up to her. "He will be fine, ma'am. I just knocked him unconscious." After announcing that Gaara had won, Hayate sent several medical personnel to carry Kiba's comatose body out on a stretcher. An anxious Akamaru hoped to accompany him on the stretcher. The screen started selecting the next match as soon as Gaara and his team were back up on the rafters. Hinata glanced in Gaara's direction. "Thank you for not hurting him, Gaara. He's an idiot, but he is still my teammate." Gaara smiled slightly. "You're very welcome, Hinata." The following bout pitted Tenten, Lee's teammate, against Temari. 2 teams over, Shikamaru noticed Naruto sighing and palming his face as they made their way to the arena floor. Shikamaru heard a portion of his discussion after bending slightly to listen more clearly. Naruto gave Hinata a look. Poor Tenten couldn't have gotten a worse opponent. She has some terrible luck. Wind style versus throwing weapons. Temari won this the second she stepped onto the arena floor. Shikamaru's mind flew into overdrive as he heard this. Naruto and the other rookies had not discussed their combat skills. The ninja handbook's first rule was to try to keep any talents hidden from the opponent until you utilize them. However, Shikamaru realized that Tenten was going to lose this match as soon as it started. All she could do was throw weapons, but Temari, her opponent, was blowing them away with wind style jutsu. Tenten's style was inherently opposed to Temari's. Temari eventually prevailed when Tenten landed on her fan after falling from the air, knocking the girl unconscious in the process. The physicians all assured her that the injuries would be easily repaired after she laid her down, but Shikamaru wasn't concerned about that. His only thought at the moment was that Naruto appeared to know details about Tenten's combat style and tactics that he shouldn't. He was also concerned that he had obtained data on every one of them. After the match, Hinata looked at the other competitors. Beside Gaara's team were Neji and Lee, followed by Dosu and Zaku, the 2 surviving sound ninja, on the opposite rafters, and finally Naruto and Shino. She wished that she would not have to battle Naruto. She truly couldn't bring herself to give him her whole force. She was aware that she would be stopped the moment she attempted it by an image of young Naruto trembling beneath his bed. No, Naruto could never be harmed by her. Fortunately, though, she had good fortune that day. The following match appeared on the screen. Zaku of the Sound Village versus Hinata Hyuga. Hinata knew better than to expect this man to be lenient toward her because Zaku's arms were still in light casts, even if the physicians were able to mend his bones to a minor fracture rather than the shattered state Sasuke had left them in. Before her bout, Hinata assessed him by watching him march down to the arena floor. When he looked up at her with a sneer, she wanted to slap him. Zaku gestured toward her. "Get down here, girl. I've been itching to put one of you disgusting lovebirds into the hospital." Hinata felt Naruto's fingers on her shoulder. "Go on, Hinata. Shows these guys the Moon Sage isn't to be messed with." Hinata grinned. "Right." Hinata jumped over the bars and hit the arena floor with that. To the surprise of everyone but Hiroko and Naruto, however, Hinata started to slow down as she hit the ground. She simply began to float more slowly, like though she were a feather, until her feet softly touched the arena floor without making a sound. Following the motion of landing on the ground, Hinata descended in a tiny bow to Zaku. She grinned as she glanced up at Zaku. "I apologize for the wait." Neji was observing from the stands, his eyes calculating. Hinata's posture and motions were very different from the gentle fist style, and she displayed none of the anxiety or self-doubt that she had previously displayed. The old Hinata were really invisible to him. Zaku attacked before the proctor could say, "Begin." He lifted his arm and pointed his wind tunnel toward Hinata. "Slicing sound wave," was proclaimed, as a burst of air screamed across the arena at Hinata. But as soon as it was close to her, both of her hands started to shine silver, and she twisted away from the blast of air, seemingly pushing the wind away as she did so. The explosion hit the wall next to Hinata, entirely excluding her as she moved elegantly around it and struck another posture, still grinning. Lee took a position beside Naruto. What kind of fighting style is that, Naruto? I've never seen it before. Naruto's pride was evident as he gazed down at Hinata. It's called the dancing moon style. It's a form that flows around attacks and opens the opponent up to some truly devastating blows. My family has been teaching her all about it while I was recovering this week. Lee was now perplexed. But the Hyuga all practice one form of taijutsu. Why did Hinata adopt this style? Naruto turned his gaze to Lee. Lee, how did you decide on your style? Lee's chest swelled. Gai-sensei began to teach me the style he fought in and I took it as an honor to learn. Naruto gave a nod. But you found it easy, right? As if the style was tailored just for you? That struck a chord with Lee, who always thought his fighting technique fit him perfectly, as if the movements were custom. Designed for him. Yes, indeed, it did. She never felt that with the gentle fist style, Naruto said, gesturing to Hinata. For her, the style was one note and far too rigid. Since she's inherently elegant and flowing, this style suited her better. She had never been into the gentle fist. Lee suddenly saw that it was similar to how he never learned ninjutsu or genjutsu but was able to master taijutsu effortlessly since it was his natural style. I fully understand, Lee said. I'm happy you assisted her in discovering a look that suited her. I didn't help her at all, Lee, Naruto said, grinning as he turned to face Hinata. I only pointed her in the proper direction because she was always a brilliant ninja who was being taught the wrong things. She truly is something amazing. Hinata dodged another blast of air, pushing it downward and cartwheeling over it this time. She trained like crazy these past few days to get it. Zaku, on the other hand, was not pleased to see his opponent casually redirect and dodge his attacks and then smile about it. How dare she insult him like that? Hinata felt Naruto's pride flow through her and felt herself grow more confident. Her crush, Naruto Uzumaki, the one person she always wanted to impress, was amazed by her and didn't even try to stop the smile from coming over her face. Zaku extended both hands to Hinata and said, Bitch, dodge this. Wave of supersonic slicing. Everybody in the rafters protected their faces from the strong winds as soon as a massive burst of air exploded from Zaku's hands, and some of the wall where it struck broke into pieces. After the wind stopped and the smoke cleared, Hinata was nowhere to be seen. Gazing up at Naruto, Zaku grinned and said, Looks like you need a new girlfriend, loser. With a gesture toward Zaku, Naruto said, You really shouldn't think you've won till you have it confirmed. Zaku's mouth dropped when he looked up to see Hinata smiling and looking down at him while she swayed gently like a leaf in the wind. My turn. Hinata whirled in midair and dropped a bit more quickly, landing directly in front of Zaku without further sound. This time, Zaku tried to punch Hinata, but she easily sidestepped it by spinning around his fist and thrusting a silvery hand against his left side. Suddenly, Zaku was hurled across the arena like a cannonball, bouncing off the ground repeatedly until he struck the enormous stone hand sign statue and left a large crater in it. With a hint of pride, Hinata simply remarked, Moon style, heavenly impact jutsu, as she moved into another posture. Zaku was groaning in agony as he struggled to stand on unsteady legs over at the wall. But I thought your sisters said she was learning more defensive style techniques, Lee commented, looking up at Naruto in the stands with a shocked expression. She did, Naruto said with a laugh, but just because armor is used to block attacks doesn't mean it won't hurt if you get hit in the face with it. Of course, Naruto knew more about it than he was saying. The Moon Sage was a living shield, and Hinata's chakra naturally reflected anything it touched, which is how she was able to deflect Zaku's attacks so easily. However, when used on a person, it turns even the smallest hit into a hell of a ride. If an opponent was strong enough to resist, they would hold their ground and be hit with a blow that felt like being hit by a train, but Zaku wasn't strong enough to keep his footing. As he recovered from Hinata's strike, Zaku coughed a few times. So what? I won't get hit at all as long as I stay away from you. Wrong, Hinata said, extending her silvery palm and inserting her other hand's fingers into the gaps in her spread hand. Moon style. Jutsu with flying strikes. A silvery hand shot from Hinata's outstretched palm across the arena and nailed Zaku squarely in the chest, causing his body to bend so much around the impact that his feet were close to his head for a brief moment before the impact threw him back into the statue, creating an even larger crater and, as the medics would later discover, a perfectly palm-shaped bruise over his fractured ribs where Hinata's jutsu struck. After waiting a few seconds without Zaku rising, The proctor held a hand up to Hinata and declared, "The winner is Hinata Hyuga." Naruto whooped loudly, "Yeah, Hinata, that was incredible. You really think I was amazing, Naruto?" Hinata said, blushing slightly before leaping far into the air and landing back on the rafters behind Naruto and her group. Naruto grinned and said, "Hinata, are you serious? You defeated him without exerting much effort. You'll shine brighter than any star, I promised." While Naruto and Hinata were happy, Sasuke and Neji were furious. Sasuke was furious because he believed that Hinata shouldn't be so strong because he was a Uchiha, the strongest clan in the Leaf Village's history, and a failure like Hinata shouldn't be able to become that strong after only 5 days of training. How strong would she be once she started learning the truly complex jutsu? Then he started to wonder about Naruto, who had already displayed incredible strength, speed, and those strange chains, and that was before he regained all of his memories. What did Naruto have now that he fully remembered all of the years of training he had endured? How far behind had he fallen? In contrast, Neji was upset that the main Hyuga branch's daughter had been released from the clan while he still had this damned seal on his forehead. Naturally, the main branch would discover the one thing he desired most, and he hoped and prayed that he would be given the opportunity to battle her in the upcoming exam. She needed to be put down in his eyes. All of that would have to wait, though, because the next matchup had already been selected on the screen. Shino Aburame vs. Neji Hyuga. Neji's face lit up with a devilish grin as he watched Hinata wish her teammate luck before he went down to the arena. Although he couldn't attack Hinata directly, he could use her friend to get his point across. Once the match started, Neji attacked, and although Shino tried to get his bugs out, which undoubtedly alarmed almost all of the rookies, he was too slow, as Neji pounded away at Shino well past the point of combat. Hinata knew better than to think that her cousin was doing this as part of the match. He would have simply knocked out Shino with a blow to the neck if he had wanted to end the bout. Shino was being tortured by Neji. Grabbing the railing, Hinata said, "Enough, Neji. This kind of violence has no justification. Simply stop the game." Neji smirked as he turned to face Hinata while holding Shino by the hair. "But I have to make sure you get the message, Hinata." Naruto placed a hand on Hinata's shoulder as her eyes furrowed. "What message, Neji?" "That you will never be free of the Hyuga clan," Neji said, narrowing his eyes. "Look," he said, dropping Shino to the ground at his feet. "What else could I have done to him but punish you for attempting to avoid your fate as the firstborn of the main branch? The seal that woman put on your father only applies to him," he said, pointing up at Hinata. "We can still take action. How does it feel, then, to know that your choice to try to alter your destiny is causing your buddy and teammate to suffer?" Ignoring the proctor's announcement that the competition was over, Neji proceeded to strike the unconscious Shino, but all of the Leaf Jonin suddenly arrived to stop him, with a man holding him in a headlock. "You promised me this man branch business wouldn't be a problem," Guy said, clearly annoyed with his student. "Neji, this is just crazy." When Kurenai noticed that Shino was breathing strangely, he rolled him over and unzipped his coat to examine his injuries. By this time, Hinata and Naruto had descended to the arena floor to examine Shino, and when Kurenai opened his coat, they discovered that Shino had large, dark bruises all over, which were growing larger as they watched. Naruto then proceeded to bite his thumb and rub the blood on his tattoo before calling Kagome to the stadium while Kurenai yelled for the medics to arrive quickly because Shino's breathing was slowing. Kurenai glared at Neji, who was standing off to the side and grinning, saying, "Whatever you say, Kurenai-sensei, it won't stick right now. In this case, I had every right to assault with all of my might." Neji turned to face Naruto and said, "Perhaps you should stop staring at me and instead concentrate on saving his life." Free counsel. Stop your pointless cheering if you want to be a ninja. It is shameful. Second, keep this in mind. A failure is always a failure, even if you have learned some new tricks. That won't alter. You talk about someone accepting fate and you try and punish them when they choose to follow another path, Naruto said, glaring at Neji before grinning. You certainly behave a lot like the main branch, even though you say you despise it. How quickly you forget to speak to your betters, failure. Neji's anger at Naruto boiled out. When Kagome was called in and, after being briefed by her younger brother, began using medical jutsu to help keep Shino alive until proper medical treatment could be obtained, Hinata concentrated on Shino. After Shino was carried out, with Kagome shouting commands to the other medics while maintaining glowing hands on him at all times, Hinata heard Neji disparaging Naruto. The final straw was that. "I see now that there are some chains that I just have to break myself," Hinata said, glaring directly into Neji's face. "Neji, I hope we cross paths in the upcoming phase." I must jolt you into rationality. Oh, knock some sense into me. Neji laughed. Why am I in need of that? Because you're still wearing chains that you don't have to and they're dragging you into the dark, Hinata said, her expression changing to one of sympathy. Neji appeared enraged and pitying him, and despite everything, she still believed she was superior to him. Neji was about to strike her when Lee and Naruto intervened. Sorry, but you'll have to wait a while for Hinata to beat your ass, Naruto said, glaring at Neji with hatred. We must wait, even though I would really like to see you beaten right now. Lee gave a nod. The misfit princess develops love and becomes strong enough to defeat her rebellious cousin in combat. That would make a fantastic narrative. After a while, things settled down and everyone had some time to gather themselves. Hiroko walked over to discuss while she was sitting there wondering about her comrade's safety. I just got word from Kagome, sweetie, Hiroko said, placing a hand on Hinata's shoulder. Shino will be alright. In fact, his buds saved his life by distributing the healing jutsu throughout his body more quickly than Kagome had ever witnessed. You can unwind. Slumping against Naruto, Hinata released a breath she was unaware she was holding. Thank goodness. In an attempt to assist her in any way he could, Naruto put an arm around her. What a troubled child, Hiroko said, grinning as she turned to face Neji, who had been told by Hinata and Naruto to remain on the other side of the rafters. He seems to be in a lot of discomfort. It's difficult to be in pain, Naruto said, shaking his head. I am aware. However, that does not justify him attacking someone who was not involved in it at all. He needs to be severely beaten by someone. Don't worry, said Hinata, looking up. I'll carry it out. In an attempt to assist their friend, Sakura and Ino approached Hinata. You lived with that guy day in and day out? Sakura asked, looking shocked. Yes, Hinata said, nodding. We're very sorry, Hinata, Ino said, looking shocked. How you handle having such bastards for relatives is beyond me. Grasping Naruto's arms, Hinata grinned and said, life gave me something nice in return. Unaccustomed to receiving such a high level of praise from someone his age, Naruto flushed bright red, which caused Hinata to laugh and the other two ladies to playfully tease him. The following matchup was eventually selected by the screen. You must be excited, Lee, Sakura said, glancing at Lee. It's very likely that you will be the next to battle. Lee turned away from the stadium and closed his eyes, saying, no, I might as well go last because that creature has kept me waiting so long. Sakura asked in a bewildered manner, are you pouting? That made Naruto giggle. My friend, I will feel your anguish. Now that I am fully recovered, I am eager to test my abilities at last. Naruto's coat sleeve was pulled on by Hinata, who said, looks like you both got your wish. Lee and Naruto looked at the screen, and they both lit up as they saw a matchup in vivid yellow letters. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Lee Rock. Lee grinned and flexed his muscles with a couple fast kicks. Hey, I was aware that if I declared I didn't want to go next, I would undoubtedly go next. Sometimes you have to take a different route to accomplish your objective. With the exception of Naruto, who simply chuckled, most people gave Lee strange glances at that one. Without any delay, Lee leapt across the arena floor, landing well on the opposite side, and waited for Naruto to descend. As Naruto prepared for battle by cracking his knuckles, Hinata grinned and said, good luck, Naruto. Try your hardest. Grinning, Naruto said, you know it, Hinata. Then, just like Hinata, Naruto sprang over the railing, but instead of landing as soft as a feather after floating gently to the ground, Naruto fell like a rock and slammed to the ground on his feet, shattering the floor with a tremendous thud. Okay, Beggy, said Hayate, lifting his arm. Naruto stopped halfway approaching Lee and extended his hand, saying, hang on a sec. I just wanted to say I consider it an honor to be up against a fellow hothead, Lee. The pleasure is all mine, Naruto, said Lee, grinning as he moved forward and accepted Naruto's offered hand. Let's put on a show for these folks now. The two returned to their respective sides, prepared for a brawl. The Hokage laughed warmly up in the rafters. That boy never ceases to amaze me. I'm not surprised at this point, Hiroko said, watching with a maternal stare. I've always been incredibly proud of him. I must admit that I'm also surprised in Hinata, the Hokage said, turning to face Hiroko. Her rapid acquisition of those techniques is astounding. They were just the basics, Hiroko said, nodding. Naturally, we had no time to teach her anything more. In any case, she spent the last 5 days training and practicing as hard as Naruto in order to learn them. What does Naruto know after all these years if those were the fundamentals and she picked them up so fast? The Hokage asked in astonishment. Watch and see, Hiruzen, said Hiroko, grinning. There are a lot of tricks that my son has planned. Now, get started, the proctor said, raising his hand once more. Lee wasted no time in charging at Naruto and launching his signature leaf hurricane, but it didn't do much because Naruto held up an arm and braced it with his other, stopping the kick dead. Lee raised his fist, meaning to strike Naruto while he was still unguarded, but he was forced to back off a few feet when an orange fiery chain shot from Naruto's chest, forcing Lee to quickly appear where he landed and throw a hard punch at his chest. Lee discovered that Naruto was much faster than Sasuke because he didn't have time to dodge and instead brought his arms up in a X across his chest to block the blow, which lessened the blow, but Lee was thrown back a few feet from the impact, unprepared for the force of the blow, stopping himself by using his hands and legs to prevent him from sliding. The dropout was keeping up with someone who had taken on Sasuke, and Sasuke could feel his muscles tightening as he watched. Up in the rafters, all the Jonin, with the exception of Kakashi, were wondering whether this was indeed Naruto, and the rookies were watching in wonder. Lee returned to his usual combat stance and assessed the situation. Naruto managed to capture my leaf hurricane without even moving. He is so dense that it's like hitting a mountain. And if I hadn't blocked that hit just now, it would have been disastrous. Even my arms hurt from it. These sage skills are incredibly powerful. At the moment, Naruto was also thinking, God, he hits like an anvil. Blocking an attack from someone other than my sisters ached for the first time ever. My finest range jutsu would be a waste of chakra because I can't get any distance on him because he's as fast as me. I guess I'll have to get creative. The attack was sloppy, though, as Lee shoved Naruto's fist down as he reached him and made for a punch while he was off balance, so Naruto went on the attack this time, heading directly for Lee and punching him when he got near enough. Before he realized what was about to happen, Lee noticed that the air around Naruto's hand appeared hazy, as if it were shaking. Lee accelerated his punch and hit Naruto's face just as a blast of air flew from Naruto's hand and hit him in the side. The two blows sent them both flying away from each other, with Naruto taking a much smaller hit because his sage body took the blow better and just slid along the ground. Lee was about to land when he felt something wrap around his foot, and he looked down to see that a chain from Naruto's hand had caught him. Lee felt the air leave his lungs from the blow, but he didn't let Naruto's attack go unanswered and brought his knee up to strike Naruto's chin, only to have Naruto's other hand block the blow. Naruto dragged in his chain, sending Lee flying toward him with a yell, and nailed Lee in the stomach when he got close. Lee landed on top of the large hand sign statue, planning his next move, but Naruto knew exactly where Lee had gone because he had regained all of his sage sense and never lost sight of him. Although he wasn't any faster than Lee, he could always stay one step ahead of him as long as he had it. Naruto brought 3 more chains from his back, bringing them all down where Lee was standing, only for them to crash down and throw up a cloud of dust. This is exactly what I needed, Hinata, Naruto said to her, a fight where I don't have to hold back but no one is in danger. Something you can just go crazy about. Believe it or not, a fight with a man who can break rocks with his bare hands will be entertaining, Hinata said, rolling her eyes and grinning slightly as she sensed Naruto's enjoyment. Try not to be harmed, please. A voice sounded in the rafters as Naruto was getting ready for the following round. Hold on a minute. Getting everyone's attention, Shikamaru yelled. I want to know right now how you seem to know so much about Lee and Tenten's fighting styles, as he glanced down at Naruto. You have a lot of nerve interrupting our fight just to demand answers from me, Naruto sighed loudly. Isn't it evident that we're enjoying ourselves? Agreed, Lee said, nodding from the statue. We are fighting an honorable war. Your inquiries may wait till we're finished. No, Lee, said Shikamaru, shaking his head. You don't realize that during our whole time in the forest, Naruto was spying on us. With a shrug, Naruto turned to face Hinata and said, here we go. Hinata laughed and said, Naruto, you were expecting this. I'm shocked that he took so long to figure it out. He knew that Tenten was a weapons master and that she would lose against a wind user like Temari, Shikamaru said, pointing at Naruto. And, Lee, he's using that against you. He's always trying to throw you off balance so you can't get a decent hit in this fight. Lee gave Shikamaru a weird look and said, or perhaps his teammate told him about what I did to keep them safe during the test. At that, Sakura said, yes, Shikamaru. Earlier in the week, I told Naruto everything about it. Naruto didn't have spies observing you all throughout the forest. No, said Naruto, shaking his head. He's correct, I did. Sakura's expression became blank. Now what? Yeah, I had a fox summoning spying on most of the teams here, Naruto said, scratching his chin. Shortly before the Forest of Death exam began, I summoned them in. Evidently impressed by Naruto, Ibiki approached the railing and said, "It appears that someone at least paid attention to my statement that information was important. However, I find it odd that no one saw these foxes observing them." Then, from the shadows of Shikamaru, Neji, and Dosu, 3 shadow foxes flowed across the floor and down to Naruto, where they clawed their way out of the ground to reveal 3 dark, furred foxes that appeared pleased with themselves. Naruto grinned, put 2 fingers in his mouth, and let out a long, loud whistle. The foxes affectionately rubbed their heads on Naruto's hand as he reached down to pet each one on the head. "These little ladies and roughly 70 others have been hanging out in the forest ever since the exam started," Naruto said. "They were able to enter your shadows while you were all asleep." With a fox in his arms and 2 others resting on his shoulders, Naruto stood up and said, "Right now, I know all of your fighting styles and jutsus and I've got countermeasures planned for all of them." He pointed to Lee and said, "Except for him." If a team was eliminated, the foxes assigned to them were supposed to watch the other teams to see if they could get any additional information. Now Lee wanted to know why. Naruto laughed. "'Cause you were a genius of hard work, just like me, so I didn't want a fight between us to be about anything less than our own abilities." Choji went to face Asuma and asked, "Sensei, is he permitted to do that?" "Ibiki told you that information is power, and Naruto saw an opportunity to get more information on his opponents and took it," Asuma said, shrugging and taking a pull from his cigarette. "According to what I've been told, he had a significant advantage over you because you guys failed to spot living shadows lurking around." "I agree," said the Hokage, nodding. Naruto spotted a fantastic chance to leverage a resource he already had to assist him obtain important information, and he executed it perfectly. "You may not like it, but in my opinion, Naruto currently has the most chunin-like appearance of all of you." Naruto shook it off and turned to face his 3 foxes. "Thank you all for your hard work," he said, feeling a surge of pride from Hinata and a bit from himself. "Inform the others that you can all go home and have a satisfying lunch and rest." Rather than landing on the floor, the 3 foxes sunk into it like water, turning back into shadows and fleeing the arena as they all joyfully yipped and leapt off Naruto. Guy moved forward and placed a hand on Lee's chin as the shadows dissipated. "Lee, you are up against someone who exudes youthful fervor. Feel free to remove them." "But, sir, I thought they were only to be taken off when someone's life was in danger," Lee said, saluting his sensei. Guy nodded. "I'll let it happen this time, Lee. Your opponent has demonstrated that he is deserving of respect. Don't hold back now and offend him." As Lee sat down and removed his leg warmers, Sakura turned to face Guy and said, "Remove what? Is it jutsu of some sort?" "No," Guy said, shaking his head. "Lee lacks both genjutsu and ninjutsu, but he will prevail in this battle because of that." Lee had started removing the 2 sets of leg weights that were visible on his legs over on the statue. As Hinata watched in confusion, she asked, "Will removing those actually assist him?" A crater was made in the stone when Lee dropped the weights from the statue, causing them to fall to the ground. Naruto watched, his eyes shocked. This might not be good. Guy gestured with his finger. "Okay, Lee, proceed." Even with sage sense, Naruto barely had time to block a punch from Lee before he disappeared off the top of the statue with an enthusiastic cry, and before Naruto could even come up with a retaliation, Lee was hitting his opposite side. While thinking, Naruto continued to block attack after attack. "He's too fast. He'll get me if I attempt to do anything but block. There is no avoiding it. I apologize, Lee, but I'm going to have to give it my all." As soon as Naruto finished thinking, Lee got past his defenses and gave him a knee to the stomach, then swiftly capitalized with a punch that should have sent Naruto flying across the arena. To Lee's surprise, though, Naruto simply skidded backwards a good 10 feet, his sage body assisting him in taking the blow once more. "Come on, Naruto," Hinata said, clutching the railing so firmly up in the stands that her knuckles were whitened. "You're capable." Guy simply grinned. "Keeping up with Lee will need a lot of work. We gave his taijutsu all of his attention and energy. This hamlet has never known a better taijutsu expert than him." Lee took off after Naruto once more, but the moment he was within striking distance, Naruto acted. Gazing at Lee, Naruto roared so loudly that even the rafters had to cover their ears. Lee was flung backwards, barely able to catch himself as his ears rang from the sound. Following the jutsu, Naruto moaned and rubbed his throat, saying, "Man, that is always hell on the throat." Lee got up and positioned himself defensively, saying, "What exactly was that, Naruto?" As he gathered his breath, Naruto coughed and raised a finger. Sage art. Kitsune roar. Naruto finished breathing and cracked his knuckles. I have to say, though, I'm surprised you had that much weight on you the entire time, Lee. It's great for crowd control and creating some distance between me and my opponent, but I can't use it back to back or it feels like my vocal cords start to bleed. That's really awesome. Yes, Lee said, nodding. According to Guy Sensei, it's prudent to always have an ace in the hole in case things start to go wrong. Reaching up to his mother's necklace, Naruto grinned and nodded, the wind around him beginning to pick up a little. Agreed. Lee, tell me, are you familiar with the Uzumaki clan? That left Lee speechless. Naruto, you have a clan? I guess that answers that question, shrugged Naruto. Yes, we scarcely qualify as a clan anymore because the majority of our history has been lost and the few members that are left are so dispersed over the ninja globe. However, they have a unique place in Leaf Village history. Now Lee wanted to know. What's that? When Naruto touched his mother's necklace, the seals on the chain glowed green before vanishing from the chain. He then removed it and held the necklace around his right hand, bringing his left hand in front of his chest with the back of his hand parallel to the ground and his right hand vertical with the pointer and middle fingers up resting in his left palm. A pose that everyone in the stands recognized as the standard Buddhist monk's meditation stance. Hinata gasped in the stands at the pose, and Hiroko narrowed his eyes as they both realized what Naruto was about to do, shocked that Lee had made him do it. Wondering what Naruto was implying, Sakura went to Hinata and said, "What's he getting at, Hinata? What was done by the clan Uzumaki?" Sakura noticed that she appeared to be gleaming silver without doing anything when Hinata turned to face her. They were masters of sealing jutsu, Sakura said. People started to fear them because of it. Hinata turned to face Naruto as she noticed Sakura's attention, saying, "But their greatest seal was the one they placed on themselves. They were rumored to be able to use some of their seals to drag the gods from their places in heaven." Sakura said in a perplexed expression, "Why would they seal themselves?" In order to gain a better view, Kakashi moved his headband off his Sharingan and stepped up. For the same reason that Lee put his weights on, he said. It was once claimed that the Uzumaki, a clan, possessed a body and chakra that could rival and even vanquish the Uchiha's spirit and eyes. Eventually, they figured out how to keep it sealed and only utilize it when necessary, keeping it as a secret weapon. He learned how to unlock it from the foxes, thus apparently it wasn't a fable. When Naruto opened his eyes again, his iris appeared to glow and the blue inside swirled and flickered like fire. Naruto then spoke, and his voice seemed to be everywhere at once, as if he were standing next to everyone in the arena at the same time. The necklace then started to glow with an ethereal light as seals started to color the air around Naruto, swirling and swirling around him as if in orbit. We were the first true sages. Then, astonishingly, grass and flowers appeared to be blooming around the area where Naruto stood, as if he had actually become the sun himself. Besides Sakura, Hinata was now glowing bright silver and appeared to be energized off the light Naruto gave off. The area surrounding Naruto suddenly burst into a pillar of light that shot straight to the ceiling, and even though it should have hurt to look at, the longer everyone looked at it, the more it seemed to calm them rather than blind. Everyone in the room heard Naruto's voice again, but this time it shook and resonated with power, as if the air struggled to carry it. Naruto's figure could be seen inside the pillar of light on the arena floor, his long coat swinging softly behind him like a gentle breeze. Death closes all. Yet something ere the end, some work of noble note, may yet be done. The pillar of light receded, as if flowing back into Naruto's body. Then, they all saw the true form of the Uzumaki clan, the form that only the Sun Sage could ever assume. Naruto looked like the sun given human form. His skin glowed a warm orange, and flames flickered and danced all over him. His mother's necklace was back on his neck, but it appeared to be embedded in his fiery skin now. It was difficult to tell where his hairline began, as it simply turned into spiky flames with two fiery horns near the front of his head. His coat was still black, but the flames on the edges moved like real flames, and the sun on his back rotated and flickered where it stood. Naruto opened his eyes, and where his eyes used to be, there were blue flames. With everything he had, Lee took a stand and braced himself for the battle of his life against the Sun Sage.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.